Garcia.
Good morning po, sir.
From Region 4A, the Administrative Officer, Ms. Florendo.
Good morning po. Good
From
morning
Region
po.
4, from Region 4B, Regional Director Josefina Abilay.
Hello po, Mami Maropa. Magandang umaga.
Salamat po.
Thank you.
From the Bicol Region, Region 5, Regional Director Romel Serrano.
Present po. Good morning to all.
From Region 6, Iloilo, ARD for Technical Operations, ARD Flores.
Good morning, sir.
ARD Deliava.
Good morning.
From Cebu, Region 7, Regional Director Jesus Zamora Jr.
Good morning po.
Together with ARD, Mr. Brian Ibanez.
Good morning po.
From Region 8, we have Director Ernesto Granada.
Present po, magandang umaga po sa lahat.
From Region 9, Zamboanga Provinces, we have Regional Director Martin Gui,
Buenos dias a todos. Good morning.
together with Assistant Regional Director for Finance and Administrative Services, Ms. Rosemary Salazar.
Buenos días a todos.
From Northern Mindanao Region 10, Regional Director Alfonso Alamban. Director Alamban.
Good morning po.
Thank you. From Region 11, the Budget Officer, Ms. Mary Joy Martinez.
Mayong buntag.
From Caraga, the ARD for Finance and Administrative Services, Director Mezo.
Good morning.
From our attached agencies, Director Franz De Leon, Advanced Science and Technology Institute.
Present. Good morning po.
Director Imelda Angeles at DEPA, Food and Nutrition Research Institute.
Morning, sir.
Director Romulo Agrangan, Forest Products Research and Development Institute.
Present and good morning.
Director Annabel Briones, Industrial Technology Development Institute.
Good morning po.
Executive Director Robert Dison, Metals Industry Research and Development Center.
Present, sir. Good morning.
Director Lingning Samarita Domingo, National Academy of Science and Technology.
Good morning po.
Executive Director Marieta Bañez Sumagaysay, National Research Council of the Philippines. Administrator Vicente Malano, Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration.
Present po. Good morning.
Executive Director Reynaldo Iborra, Philippine Council for Agriculture, Aquatic and Natural Resources Research and Development.
Good morning po. Good morning po.
Executive Director Enrico Paringit, Philippine Council for Industry, Energy and Emerging Technology Research and Development.
Present po. Good morning.
From the Philippine Council for Health Research and Development, OIC Ms. Anicia Cotameo. Director Teresito Bacolcol, Deputy Director, Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology.
Present po and good morning.
Thank you.
Morning. Thank you.
Director Carlo Arcilia, Philippine Nuclear Research Institute.
Present. Good morning.
Thank you.
Deputy Executive Director Rod Alan De Lara, Philippine Science High School System.
Good morning. Present.
Director Celia Elumba, Philippine Textile Research Institute.
Magandang umaga po.
Director Joseph Bio, Science Education Institute.
Present. Magandang umaga sa lahat.
Mr. Romeo Havate, Office of the Director, Technology Application and Promotion Institute.
Magandang umaga po, President po.
And the Commission on Audit representatives of the various offices, co-representative for PCED, Ms. Annalisa Agunia,
Present, sir. Good morning.
COA representative for the Philippine Space Agency, Mr. Joe Vincent Grisola,
Present, good morning.
COA representative for the Department of Science and Technology, Ms. Maria Victoria Gregorio,
Present po, magandang buhay.
Mr. June Van Schoonveld, also the COA representative for DOST.
Good morning. God bless the day.
Oh, Miss June Van. Ms. Marieta Magdarao, COA representative for DOST.
Present po, sir.
Ms. Maria Cristina de Guzman, COA representative for DOST.
Present po, sir. Good morning.
Ms. Mary Grace Calamba, COA representative for DOST. Ms. Narcisa Reyes, COA representative for DOST.
Good morning, present po.
Ms. Ofelia Ador Junicio, COA representative for DOST.
Present po. Good
Mr. Victor Dizon, COA representative for DOST.
Good morning, President po.
And Ms. Sara Ruga, COA representative for DOST.
Present po. Good morning.
That is all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Comsec would like to start the ball rolling, but before that, the chair would just like to give a very short opening statement. Muli maganda at mapagpalang umaga po sa atin lahat, sa ating mga bisita dito sa Senado. Maraming salamat for being physically present, sa ating mga kasamahan at joining us online. Maraming salamat for being here. Again, let me acknowledge Senator Amy Marcos, who is joining us in today's hearing. Today, we are going to hear the budgets of 3 agencies, namely the Department of Science and Technology, the Philippine Space Agency, and the Philippine Center for Economic Development. Alam niyo, nung nasa gabinete ako, alam ho ito ni ASEC Ted Gatchalian, lagi ko pong sinasabi na kung may pinakateki na government agency, dapat kami ho yun, TESDA. Pero alam niyo, mula ho nung nag-sponsor tayo ng budget ng DOST, lagi ko na pong sinasama, dapat pinakateki ang DOST at PhilSA. Pero sa panahon po ngayon, dapat pala lahat ng ahensya ng gobyerno, it appears that all government agencies should be techie at gumagamit ng siyensya at teknolohiya. I believe that the DOST should take the lead in enhancing the S&T capability of the government from top to bottom. Nakita po natin yan amid the COVID-19 pandemic and before that, the Fourth Industrial Revolution. We really need to align technology development, innovation, and scientific progress with governance and social progress in general. Hindi po malayo ito sa mandato ng DOST, which is to provide central direction, leadership, and coordination of scientific and tech efforts toward the maximum economic and social benefits for the people. Nakita ko rin po yan and I commend the Department of Science and Technology kung paano natin ibinababa ang science and technology sa ating mga pamayanan sa pamamagitan po halimbawa ng DOST setup, yung CES, nakita ko po yun. I was there sa Pampanga nung isang araw. Itong CES, yung Community Empowerment through Science and Technology. S&T po ang sasandalan ng ating economic recovery at malaki po ang papel ng DOST para makalikha tayo ng trabaho at oportunidad sa ating mga komunidad. Job creation is a whole of government responsibility and I think all of you would agree with me on that. As we continue to face this pandemic, our people and the government will rely on the DOST's activities and initiatives concerning COVID-19 through its R&D projects, services, and facilities. I hope that this perspective or strategy is at the core of your budget for 2022 and that's what we are going to we'll be looking into. Now, the role of Philippine Space Agency is also very important for us to continue the advancements in space technologies in the country. When we hear Philippine Space Agency, we immediately think of astronauts and spaceships, but more importantly, we need to recognize the implications of the data gathered by satellites in many aspects of our daily life. Ako po, I think, when I think of the budget of PhilSA, as a very good investment po ito for our future. However, I am saddened that out of the proposed 1.890 billion of its 2022 budget, the DBM only approved 181 million, or just 9.58% of the proposed budget. Mamaya, talakayin po natin ito. Kumbaga, kailan po ba tayo magsisimula? Kaya po ng Pilipino makipagsabayan at napatunayan ho natin yan. We have geniuses in this country who can probably be the next Elon Musk who can take humans to space and back. Well, libre po ang mangarap, pero kung mangangarap na rin lang po tayo, dapat taas-taasan naman talaga natin. And finally, as we enter the new normal, we look favorably at a future where we are able to recover as a nation from the recession caused by this pandemic, and we look to the Pced to guide us in the right direction. Ito pong Pced ang isa sa mga example ko ng small agency but with big impact. Napaka-uncertain po ng panahon natin at ngayon natin kailangan ng mga tamang direksyon, kaya napakahalaga at napaka-importante ang research at data. We should not allow competing social forces to defeat reason and rationality, justice, and the common good. We cannot base our decisions on political interests or on the culture of fear, anger, and fake news. So kailangan po ng mga think tank, lalo na po ngayon, we need more researches and studies to help the government build and support a system of evidence and empirical-based and forward-looking policies. Naniniwala po ako na every step we take should be in the light of reason and towards justice and the common good, because we deal with life and death situations for our people. So let us do the economics, science, and technology in the light of reason towards justice and the common good and for the whole Filipino society. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. The chair would like to acknowledge Senator Amy Marcos, if you have any opening statement. Madam Senator.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairman Joel. We're very deeply concerned about the DOST and would like to help them in every way. So the condemnation by the UNESCO that the Philippines continues to be a laggard in.
But thank you for your patience at sa iyong kasipagan na laging narito. Tsaka yung Pced, favorite mo tong Pced, Senator Amy. Anyway, thank you very much. Well, the chair would like to call the heads of offices to present their budget. We have here with us, first on the list is the Philippine Center for Economic Development. We'd like to call, can I just hit the, ano? We have with us Dr. Maria Joy Abrenica, the Executive Director of Philippine Center for Economic Development. Ma'am, you have the floor to present your budget. Thank you.
Yes. Good morning, Senator, and good morning, everyone present. So I'd like to start by our first slide is the performance report for 2020 and 2021 as of first semester. And so we have a PowerPoint.
You have a presentation?
Yes.
Please.
I believe that would be operated by.
May we know if someone is in charge? Okay, please proceed. Thank you.
Okay, so the first slide, The first slide details the performance of our performance for 2020 and 2021. So our budget is actually used for supporting teaching and research of UP School of Economics, as well as some local funded projects that are actually related to the rehabilitation of the PCED building and the upgrading of our information system. Next slide, please. So in 2021, okay, in 2020, our fund utilization rate is about 88%. But there's a bit of improvement for 2021, 92%. This takes into account the two memorandum of agreements that we are now working with DPWH and DICT. DPWH will be implementing our rehabilitation of the Pced building, and the DICT would be taking care of the improvement of our information system. Next slide, please. So the budget for 2022 of Pced consists of support to teaching, support to research, and gas, and it's about 30.9 million. I should say that this is almost half of our budget last year. And for that reason, we would really need some supplement to it. Next slide, please. Okay, so the next slide details the usage of the 2022 PCED building, 2022 PCED budget. So it provides details on support to teaching, which is basically support to graduate fellowship and research for this. This is used for research of the faculty. Next slide, please. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, because of the pandemic, Senator, we have, as I mentioned, our current budget is only almost half of what we had last year. And because of that, the pandemic actually increases our requirements. The first thing that we need really is to increase the stipend of our PCED fellows. The reason being is that many of our graduate students chose to drop out of school last year, and they continue to do so because of the pandemic. So the stipend that we have been providing them is obviously not enough because this is also used partly to support their families. We have also not been able to upgrade our stipend even to the level of UP rates. So we're lagging behind that. The other important expense that we have to make for the coming year is the continuing rehabilitation of the PCED buildings. We have had perennial water leak problem that actually damaged the classrooms recently. And so we have hired a structural engineer who advised us that we really need to fully cover our roof deck and redesign our storm drainage system. Our building was built in 1974, so it's almost 50 years old. But we're also looking forward to resumption of face-to-face classes next year. And because many of our classrooms were badly damaged because of water leak problem, in addition, we need to repair them. But in addition to that, because of the social distancing and health protocols that we need to observe, we would need more classrooms in order to have a smaller class size. Currently, our classrooms accommodate about 40 to 50 students, but we need to have only about half of that in each of the classrooms. So for that reason, we need to build our classrooms and repair the existing ones. Then third, next slide, please. Next slide, please. We expect that the teaching of classes would still be partly face-to-face if things improved, but it would be blended. So we would still need to be prepared for online classes. So for that, we would need software programs, application programs, and databases to help students and faculty do their research online. We're also hoping to be able to invite more visiting professors and fellows. They do not have to be physically present in the Philippines, but they could do that teaching online. This will also complement the not only our current faculty resources, but also help in the internationalization of the UP education system. Currently, we have about 16 faculty members, regular faculty members. We need to increase that to about 25 in order to have a better student faculty ratio, I mean lower student faculty ratio. The maximum class size now, UP is trying to have the maximum class size limited to 25. But because of the current population that we have, student population that we have, and our faculty size, so we have a ratio of about 35 students to 1. So we're far behind that that ideal class size. We also would like to send some of our recent recruits for postdoctoral studies. So next slide, please. Okay. These are just some of the pictures that we have on how badly damaged our classrooms are. Next slide, please. And this is because of the drainage system that, as I mentioned, is about 50-year-old already. So, so clearly we need to improve this. Next slide, please. This is another view of some of our classrooms whose ceilings have been eroded, and as you could see, they do not look nice as well. So, okay, next slide, please. Okay, here's another. Okay, all right. Given the foregoing, we expect that we would need money, additional money, in addition, beside the what was approved for us, which is $1 million. That's all, Senator. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Abrenica. I was looking at the presentation, and well, unless my dear colleagues would like to start first, I'll give the floor to Senator Amy.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Thank you.
I'm very curious about Pced because my father endowed this institute, and at that time it was really a pivotal source of information and research. I was just curious. I know that you in fact have classes in graduate studies, that you in fact have financial grants to graduate students. But I was just wondering if you had any research outputs and other papers that we could use by way of policy recommendations here in the legislature.
Yes, thank you, Senator Amy. Before you answer, let me just also state that last year it was Senator Amy and this representation who made it possible to increase the budget of Pced. And it's just so disheartening that we just found out that maliit na nga yung budget. 18 million, hindi pa nilabas. So, hindi nilabas yung 18 million sa maliit na 30-something million. Tapos, ngayong fiscal year 2022, this is lower by 46.14% compared to the to last year's budget. So, yeah, please answer the query of Senator Amy Marcos, and perhaps you can also add, siguro other than that question raised by Senator Amy Marcos, ano yun ho natin, how has the research of Pced contributed to national development? I think that's very important, no? Especially itong COVID-19 economic and other response. So please, Dr. Abrenica, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Amy. if I may call you by your first name, sorry, Senator Marcos. So currently we have research collaboration with other government agencies, in particular the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. And we're hoping that that would bear fruit next year. And we are hoping to focus on bank regulation and how that could help in the post-COVID scenario. We're also, of course, our faculty members do individual researches, which are actually funded by Pced, and they vary from monetary policy to health to social protection policy. So we have a range of researches that we could provide your office a copy of if that would be of interest to the senator and
Yes, I
also Senator Villanueva.
That would certainly be most important, Mr. Chairman, because we are always accessing the research provided by NEDA, PSA, other research and study groups in government. But somehow, natatabunan itong Pced. Parang hindi na natin nababalitaan na may trabaho rin kayo na dapat basahin rin namin sa paggawa ng batas. Yun lang.
Agree. At there are a lot of senators here who loves to read researches, and we feel it's badly needed, especially at this point in time. Yes, Dr. Brenica, can you please move closer? No, to the microphone lang ho, just so we can hear you. I'm really having a hard time hearing you from here. Thank you.
Okay po. If I may just say, Senator, we've done also researches not only on health economics, but also on competition policy, and that actually helped in the formation of the Philippine Competition Commission. In addition to that, we have had researches also on customs, and that helped in the passage of the Customs Modernization Act. So those are
Madagdagan natin yung budget ninyo, para madagdagan natin yung budget niyo, magpakitang gilas naman tayong konting pasikat lang. Kasi syempre yung health economics, ngayon namang problema tayo kung paano mapondohan ng buong buo ang universal healthcare. I know that UP and so many of our Filipino economists have taken it upon themselves to study healthcare and its economic impact. So sana makishare naman kayo, pati yung sinasabi nyo, I just came from the Philippine Competition Budget Hearing, talagang yung mergers and acquisition ngayon napakatindi, at ang inirereklamo, yung policy daw ng Pilipinas, baliktad sa dapat gawin kapag recovery ang habol.
Thank you, Senator Amy. Please, you can proceed, Senator Amy. If you have more questions, we can.
Wala naman, pare-pareho lang tayo kasi yung proposed national government subsidy, yung 30.8 million, ano ba nangyari na? Tapos yung 15.5 million, hindi nga, ano nangyari doon na for
18 million, hindi, dinagdagan natin last year yung maliit na budget, pero yung 18 million hindi lumabas. Tapos, ngayon, 46% lower. So, 26 million na rin yung budget nila, Senator Ivy.
I think that's really dangerous. We've already been called a laggard in research and development. And then we know that a post-COVID recovery can only occur if we have new ideas, if we have innovation and creative thinking. Tapos pipigilan natin yung marurunong dyan at hindi bibigyan ng karampatang budget. So ano yung priority ninyo? Kung hihingi tayo, anong pinaka-priority ninyo para maipagtanggol naman namin kayo ni Joel? Ano yung priority? Baka may wishlist po kayo.
Meron po, Senator Marcos.
Sige, pero hindi naman kayo bibili ng space shuttle, di ba? Okay.
Hindi
Go
po.
ahead.
Actually po, as I presented a while ago po, we need to increase the rates of the stipend of our fellows because some of them decided not to continue study last year in order to help their families. Our stipend, Mhm.
How much
That
would that
would
be?
Okay, that would be around 10 million from the presentation po kanina. That would be additional 10 million. This is just really to raise the stipend of our students to the level of UP rates. UP provides graduate fellowship as well, but that's of limited number. And so we'd just like to raise it to that level. But the other thing, Senator, as I was saying a while ago, we need to continue the rehabilitation of our PCED buildings, which, as you probably know, it's about 50 years way back to the time of your father. And though the reason it's very old, we still have a very antiquated drainage system, which is no longer working. And as a result, many of our classrooms were badly damaged because of recent rains, heavy rains. Not only that, we're also looking forward to face-to-face, resumption of face-to-face classes next year. And for that reason, we would need to have smaller class sizes. So the current classrooms accommodate about 50 students, but now we would like to reduce it to 25. That's the ideal class size that UP is trying to maintain now for social distancing and health protocols. But in particular, because it would be blended learning, still probably in the next coming years. So when you do remote teaching, you need to have smaller classes, not the ones that we have in huge auditorium and the like. So aside, that would be quite a substantial amount of money because the two buildings that we have, the library,
You go to that particular item, which is the improvement of your remote accessibility. Let me just state this for the record, no. While some people would not think about spending dahil, I mean, for infra, for example, because walang face-to-face, etc. Iba yung pananaw ko dito kasi dapat ngayon hinahanda natin so that once na magtuloy, dire-diretso, hindi yung pagka, okay, game na. Ay, wala pala tayong classroom. Ay, wala pala tayong facilities, no? So, I just want to clear that out. And we are here to help in any way we can. But siguro yung dun sa tinatanong namin ni Senator Amy, so iyan yung mga kailangan. Ano din yung ine-expect natin, no? Pagka nagawa ito, ano yung ine-expect natin? How will improve your efficiency? How it will improve yung output that at the end of the day, result-oriented tayong lahat dito eh. And we understand the process, we understand what we need, even patience, etc. No? But let me point that out, no? Yung actions being done by Pced in order to ensure that right now yung students and faculty are equipped with the necessary software applications essential to for remote learning and research.
would you like me to say? Yeah, okay.
Please.
So that is why we would need additional money, additional money for that, because we would have to buy continue our subscription. Most of these are annual subscription of software and also databases that would help us in our research. But at the same time, I mentioned a while ago that we're hoping to have, this was recently approved by our PCED board to allow us to spend money for visiting professors and fellows. They would be teaching online. Those are foreign professors from other outside the country. They don't have to come here, but the money we would hope could be used to give them some sort of honorarium.
And that would boost the internationalization trust of UP.
Yes. In addition to helping us in our teaching, it would also do well for UP, and hopefully that would.
Right now we can't do that. We don't have this kind of program because of lack of funds.
No, UP has has done a lot to internationalize not
Okay.
only its students but also its faculty. But Pced would like to have a share of a contribution to that through the School of Economics. So as I mentioned there, we would need to recruit more faculty members because we are expecting to have smaller class sizes, and therefore you would need faculty for that, additional faculty for that. And so that would be around another 10 million or so budget that we would need.
Okay, thank you. Sige, Senator Amy, baka
Magkano
yung
na yan? Additional 10 million for all the applications and subscriptions. Magkano na yan total? Tama ba ito? Increase 10 million yung stipend para sa mga nag-quit o ayaw nang tumuloy. Tama naman yun, yung 10 million. I think Chairman Joel, kailangan talaga yan. Yung rehab, talagang bulok na yung building na yon at sayang yung mga library doon. Talagang pinag-ipunan niya noon eh. Tapos
Yes, Senator Amy, if you would recall last year, we increased the infrastructure project. Parang you wanted by phase muna, kaya nilagyan na natin. Kaya lang hindi din nila ni-release eh, di ba? Yung additional
FLRD niyan eh. So, tignan natin. So, yung total, 10 million. Tama ba to? 10 million plus 85 plus 66 plus another 10 million for subscriptions and applications. Tama ba?
To be precise po, Senator Marcos, it would be a total of additional for the remote teaching and online classes. That would be additional about 12 million, additional 12 million, not 10 million. But so 10 million for increase in stipend, about 85 million for the main building and 66 million for the library building, and 12 million for remote teaching and online classes.
Best effort kami rito, pero yung stipend, kinakailangan siguro pilitin natin yan, Chairman Joel, kasi mahirap
Agree.
yung naumpisahan na, tapos magkikwit pa. Ano ba naman yan?
Tsaka siguro, ma'am, you're talking about your resources for teaching, no? Yung faculty members, kasama na ba dito? Kasi di ba, if I'm not mistaken, you only have about, 16 regular faculty members? 16.
Because of, yes, Senator, because
But what's the ideal?
we hope to have 25, and the reason that the size has gone down to 16 is that of late we have retirements. Nagkasabay-sabay po yung mga retirements and some movement of our faculty members. So we hope to recruit more. And actually, Senator, if I may just add, the PCED fellowship grant has been
PSA, ginagampanan rin to ng NEDA, ng iba't ibang research institutions. Sana meron kayong totoong comparative advantage. Ano ba talaga yung specialty, kumbaga specialization ninyo? Para may selling point naman kami.
Baka pwede natin silang ipalit sa IATF, sa Naimi.
Wagi!
Senator, if I may answer for your question, I think what distinguishes the research of the UP School of Economics is that it is both academic and policy oriented. So the other agencies surely are doing their research, but they are more geared towards policy. But us, it's a combination of academic and policy. And the other thing po is, I think the main contribution of the School of Economics is to produce graduates that eventually join the bureaucracy. Like we have Senator Carl Chua, as the Director General now. He was actually my student.
I see.
Way back.
I have 2 of my staff came from Pced, Senator Amy. Hindi ko alam
Ganon. Okay.
din, baka lumaki mga ulo. Okay, sige po. Please submit those figures and again, yung what we expect, no? If we deliver on this, we will work hard para makuha natin lahat. But we cannot promise you na makuha natin lahat. But yung sa kakulangan dun sa faculty, fellows, yun mukhang malaking yung
Debate in plenary.
Okay, any objection? Chair hears none. It's deemed submitted for plenary action. Thank you, Dr. Abrenica. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you po, Senator.
Thank you. We move forward, and next on the list is the Philippine Space Agency. We have with us may tokayo, Director General Joel Joseph Marciano Jr. and Mr. Rosel Nino Vicente. Director General Joel, you are recognized, sir, for your budget presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, Senator Joel and Senator Marcos. Thank you for this opportunity to present PhilSA's budget proposal to you today with the objective of gaining additional funding for our programs. Can we go to the next slide? We have a slide presentation. Just quickly outline of our presentation. First, we start with a quick introduction about the impact of space activities and the space economy. Second, we go to our flagship programs and FY 2022 budget proposal, and then a summary. Okay, next slide, please. Now, for the most part, the idea of space is seen as something that does not affect our everyday lives. This is not true, of course. Satellite internet, maps, and global navigation systems enable applications for ride sharing and food delivery. These are services derived from satellites. Space technology brings about this invisible infrastructure that makes these conveniences and benefits possible. Valuable research that has gone into sending astronauts to space has also found its way to everyday objects such as air purifiers, water filtration systems, and wireless headsets. The infrared thermometer, made ubiquitous in this pandemic, measures thermal radiation in much the same way the temperature of stars and planets is measured. So space enables technologies that have come to widespread use. So really, what is a space agency about? A space agency creates innovations arising from scientific pursuit and for societal benefit. A space agency also provides new means to address global challenges by providing an additional vantage point to assess and address problems on Earth. This results in advances in materials, health and medicine, transportation, computers, disaster resilience, and environmental sustainability. As a result, in 2019, the size of the global space economy was estimated to be around $366 billion US dollars, broken down into 17.4 billion for the upstream segments such as satellites, rockets, and spaceports, and 253.3 billion for downstream applications. So this is the landscape, Your Honor, which opens new opportunities for the Philippines to contribute meaningful science and to be part of the global value chain. So we might think of space as a faraway notion, but really each and every one of us is living the space economy in our daily lives here on Earth. Next slide, please. So recognizing the benefits of investing in space, governments in Asia fund space programs. This table shows a view of the space budgets of countries in the region. So in seeking additional funding for its programs, PhilSA aims to capacitate itself to deliver on its mandate and address our key development areas. Next slide. So with that backdrop, let me now proceed to PhilSA's 2022 budget proposal. Our first flagship program, Build in Space, or B3IS, Philippine Satellites as vital component of national ICT infrastructure, focuses on the upstream segment of the space value chain. Next slide. So under B3IS, our major project for 2022 is the MULA, or Multispectral Unit Land Assessment Satellite, which is a continuation of a project started by the Department of Science and Technology that is now passed on to PhilSA with a 2022 funding requirement of 1.07 billion pesos. MULA is an advanced satellite for Earth observation. Under sovereign control of the Philippines, it serves national interest by providing a more secure, independent, and efficient resource for geospatial data. With this satellite, Filipino engineers have their fingerprints on the spacecraft and will gain and retain the know-how. it includes a license to rebuild the satellite in country, which means that succeeding satellites can be built in the Philippines and with increasingly local inputs. This opens opportunities for local companies to enter the supply chain, design, manufacturing, assembly, and testing of satellites and advanced technologies. Next slide, please. So MULA takes pictures that are 120 kilometers wide at a resolution of 5 meters and at 9 different colors or bands. It also carries instruments for detecting ships and airplanes. So MULA supports Earth observation applications for national security, agriculture, disaster risk reduction, and coastal monitoring and ocean studies, among others. Next slide. The value of data from MULA can potentially reach US $171 million over the satellite's estimated 5-year lifetime, which is about 4 times the initial investment of around $44 million. This value of data covers the Philippine territory alone. As a sovereign Philippine satellite, we can use MULA to take pictures around the globe, which can also be offered up for commercialization opportunities. Next slide. Now, still related to our Build in Space initiative, PhilSA is not only looking into Earth observation satellites, but also into satellites that provide internet connectivity. This incentivized project, which stands for Introducing Non-Geostationary Satellite Constellations Test Deployments to Improve Internet Service, will conduct an open call for satellite companies to undertake test deployments or trials in the country, specifically in remote areas ahead of planned or scheduled commercial service. So to illustrate, please click. We start with the remote areas in the Philippines that need internet connectivity. These could be schools, rural health centers, government offices, disaster risk reduction management offices. They need to be connected to the internet through the internet point of presence in the Philippines. So to bridge this gap between the remote area and the internet, we will use satellites. In particular, we refer to those in low Earth orbit, LEO, or medium Earth orbit, MEO. So the system in the yellow box in the diagram is what Incentivize will try to bring in. We will facilitate the entry of new satellite internet operators, or SIOs, for these tests. Examples of such SIOs are shown here. Through Incentivize, PhilSA intends to shine the spotlight on new space technologies that help bridge the digital divide. So in the deployment sites, we will invite representatives from parent government agencies like DepEd and the RMC, Office of Civil Defense, DOH, Department of National Defense, and the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, as well as the private sector to observe the tests firsthand. Next slide. Now, our second flagship program is Mobilizing Space Data. It deals with the downstream of space and the value of space data. Next slide. So this project will process and distribute satellite-derived data to key agencies and end users, and has a funding requirement for 2022 of 213,676,000. We bring this program to your attention as a priority in light of developments in the West Philippine Sea that point to a need to obtain timely and accurate geospatial information that complement our maritime patrols. We provide almost daily information about the presence of ships in the WPS through appropriate channels for dissemination to relevant agencies. Now, PhilSA also contributes satellite images to monitor the marine environment and assess the impact of human activities in the West Philippine Sea and other bodies of water. Next slide, please. So in this slide, we can see satellite data used to identify prospective fishing areas in municipal waters. And we also launched the COVID-19 Space Data Dashboard together with DOST ASTI and the Stamina for Space program, which helps us understand the impact of COVID-19 through satellite-derived data, such as ship traffic, air quality, water quality, and night lights. This in turn can support more responsive programs and policy making. Next slide, please. So to support our programs, we propose to DBM a 2022 budget of 1.89 billion. The current budget of PhilSA that is before the House and Senate is only 181,179,000. We note that a big chunk of the request will go to continuing the MULA satellite as a single self-contained project that has already started under the DOST. It requires minimal administrative overhead, and we are confident in our ability to obligate these funds and implement the project. Next. Sticking to the NEP level will result, next slide please. Next slide. Sticking to the NEP level will result in deferring the MULA satellite, possibly losing the highly skilled personnel and incurring higher costs later on. As an aspiring space-capable nation, we will not have a sovereign Earth observation presence in space, and we will lose precious momentum. The current NEP is insufficient, even just for West Philippine Sea monitoring alone, and we will have to balance that with other applications such as agriculture and damage assessment during disasters. We will also forego the development of a national registry of space objects, which will mean inability to monitor space objects transiting over the Philippines that is increasingly crucial to national security. Last but not least, we will reduce the number of our PhilSA Ab Astra scholarship offerings, which will hamper our capacity to further develop our domestic space capabilities and to catch up with our neighbors. We know that even at this early stage of PhilSA's mobilization, Your Honors, we are now finalizing the awarding of one foreign scholarship already. So let me end the presentation with this slide. What can space technology do for an archipelagic nation like the Philippines? We first realized that as an archipelagic nation, we are separated by seas or bodies of water, which constrains our ability to connect with each other. As an archipelago, we first of all need to master water and the seas. Our geographic features and location in the Pacific Ring of Fire and the Typhoon Belt present challenges to our safety, productivity, and development almost on a daily basis. As such, this behooves us to gain a better understanding of our entire environment. That's why we look to space, Your Honors. Just as compelling as the need to master the seas that surround us and the need to understand our natural environment is the need to master the domain of space. Space, with the strategically high and wide vantage point that it offers, has the potential to unite us. The capabilities offered by space science and technology, whether for terrestrial or maritime monitoring, navigation, or connectivity, can bridge our islands, uplift our condition, and empower our lives. Maraming salamat po. That ends my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Director General Joel Marciano Jr. I'll give the floor muna kay Senator Amy Marcos. Senator Marcos.
Yes, hi. Yeah, I didn't have a chance to go over your budget very, very carefully, but I know that a month ago, quite a few of our science community were very excited by the launch of Maya 3 and 4, the Cube satellites that are Philippine made in SpaceX spacecraft from Kennedy Center in Florida. So I wanted to know, what's your participation versus what is DOST Stamina for Space? Who does what?
Thank you, Senator Marcos, for that question. The Maya 3, Maya 4 is currently funded by DOST through a program implemented by the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Personally, my involvement there in the past, before I came to PhilSA, I was a program leader of that initiative, which obviously was handed off to other people. Now, Maya 3, Maya 4, these nanosatellites is expected to be supported by PhilSA moving forward in terms of its further proliferation to other institutions in the country and even to cascading to industry. So yun po ang current status is isa po to sa mga programa na currently funded ng DOST at in-implement po ng UP, Diliman at ng Advanced Science and Technology Institute under DOST. Ang PhilSA po, papasok po dyan with funding to further or to continue and to expand even this program po. Para magkaroon tayo ng Maya 7, 8, 9, 10, even Diwata 3, 4, 5, 6. Yun po.
Yes, what is the timetable and the what do you call this, the progress anticipated for this program? Because you have quite an ambitious lineup of targets, you know, from WPS monitoring, maritime domain, agriculture and food security, disaster and weather predictions. Napakarami nito eh. So, alin ba talaga ang magagampanan ninyo in the next few years? Kasi wala kaming nababalitaan tungkol dyan eh.
Thank you, ma'am, for that question. Well, actually, some of those initiatives are already ongoing. Yung pong pag-provide ng satellite images, of course, there are coordination that's happening. There's coordination that's happening with existing agencies that are transitioning capability to the PhilSA. So we are not starting from scratch in as far as providing satellite imagery, whether it's for maritime domain awareness or for agriculture and other purposes or disaster response. There are already existing activities which stem from prior activities on DOST that are expected to be transitioned to the Philippine Space Agency for more operational, for other operational use. So I can say po confidently that these activities, in line with PhilSA's build-up, sumasabay po ang PhilSA sa pag-hire ng mga tao para po ma-undertake yung dalawang programa, which is yung pag-continue ng pagbuo ng mga satellites like Maya, Diwata, and Mula, at saka po yung paggamit ng datos mula sa satellites. So that's happening now, and next year, we expected to ramp that up further. Hopefully by next year, we will be around 200 people in PhilSA already, transitioning, absorbing some of the project-based personnel from DOST projects into regular positions.
Okay,
And then
perhaps
moving forward po.
sorry. Perhaps what we need to ask from you siguro is kahit maikling briefer lang dyan because everyone was so excited about it. Maybe we need to manage expectations at the same time. Project what accomplishment, what goalposts there are in the near future para alam naman natin kung saan patungo, and maybe you can provide us kahit maikli lang just to give us a general idea kasi hanggang kailan ba yung mga Maya at saka ano bang output niyan, what are the target periods or dates so that we have some idea. The Maya was actually launched aboard SpaceX spacecraft, and nabanggit na rin yung SpaceX na yan. Medyo na-excite lahat dun sa SpaceX Starlink satellite broadband na may subsidiaries na dito sa Pilipinas and ready for October. Nasa October na tayo, nawala yung balita. May kinalaman ba dyan yung ating Philippine space?
Thank you, ma'am, for that question. First of all, we'll provide po our timeline and our targets. We'll certainly provide that, and we prepare that as well. Now, with regard to satellite internet, our involvement is to shine the spotlight on space technologies. Kasi po yung connectivity natin sa internet, pwede po yan via land, via cable, undersea cable, pwede rin po through satellites. And for an archipelagic nation, mas madali po natin maabot ang mga isla natin in remote places kung may satellite po overhead. So our involvement here is to highlight the importance of the space segment and new technologies in space that are contributing to these advanced satellite technologies. So yung project namin, yung test deployments po, yung pag-facilitate ng early trials of these companies so that we can assess and validate the performance of their technologies in the local setting. Importante po yun kasi iba po ang ulan sa atin, iba ang bagyo, nagka-power outage, kulang ng reliable supplies ang kuryente.
Because of our extreme weather, even the most robust technologies have failed in the Philippines time and again.
Yes, ma'am, that is part of the research objective of our test deployments. So we are launching an open call to invite these new space companies to come to the Philippines so that we can have parang medical trials, yung parang trials for drugs, no po, yung for medicine, no? Except these are internet satellites. Para po habang nandito sila, nakausap natin sila, we can connect them to private sector, we can connect them to government agencies who have a interest in the services that they may provide in the future. So in this way, we're also coordinating with the ICT. Thank you, ma'am.
I see. So despite the announcement, on Twitter by Elon Musk that Starlink would exit beta by next month, meaning October. In fact, you're only at the period of inviting investors sa ngayon.
Ma'am, to clarify po, I think yung beta nila is exiting in where they're already present, particularly in North America. But I think that it's still a question po kung kailan sila papasok sa ibang areas tulad ng Pilipinas. So gusto lang po natin magkaroon ng ganung dialogue, no? At mag-assist or mag-facilitate administratively para maka-testing po sila dito sa atin. Just like what they've done in other countries. Para po, kasi dito we know for sure that we can use these satellites. There are several of them po. It's not limited to that one company. There are at least 2 other companies who can provide similar services from those satellites po.
Yeah, we're so delayed sa totoo lang sa satellite. I was an early proponent many years ago. Na-excite kami dun sa remote sensing na equipment na binigay sa Quezon City, hindi ginamit, na mothball, matapos yung gimaras sa oil spill. Kung maalala niyo, sa long time ago, matagal na namin sinasabi na dapat gamitin. Pero as we all know, na mothball. Sana yung mga ganung pagkakataon hindi na maulit. Yun lang po. Buhay pa ba yun, yung mga remote sensing na yun?
Madam Senator, we'll check po the status of that. We'll look into it. Itong yung binigay po sa Quezon City. Perhaps you can also check with DOST and the Quezon City government, or maybe it's UP. We'll check po on that, on the remote sensing capabilities. But what we know is that remote sensing community in our country is quite vibrant community, no, of practitioners and also of academics. So we tap into that po.
Yes, we had quite a few visitors from NASA. For some strange reason, there's an overrepresentation of Ilocano scientists from MMSU and so on in NASA. And they were saying that we had basic remote sensing capability even 10 years ago, and yet we were not using it. So yun, apparently there are bits and pieces like this that need to be pulled together, at least for basic agricultural and fishing data, for basic weather monitoring and all that. We just don't want anything to go to waste. You have such a small budget and such ambitious plans, and then we are in fact wasteful of these few advantages we have. Yun lang. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Amy. It's always interesting this time of the year whenever we deliberate on the budget of Philippine Space Agency. If I recall, I was looking at your budget. Last year is 313 million, and this year 181 million. But this coming year, no, 2022, 181 million. Your proposed budget is 1.8 billion, 1.890 to be exact. But DBM only approved 181 million. So that's only 9.58% of the proposed budget. So paliit ng paliit, baka, but you know, we respect what DBM is doing and we give them the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps if you can, I was listening attentively a while ago with your presentation, and you were mentioning projects that will be affected with this, no? It's very hard also to say na we can fight for it and easily we'll get your wish list of 1.8 billion from 181 million. In fact, I have some questions later on with regard to your status of funds and there's a findings. Where's that? Anyway, we will go to that later. But can you give us the priority wish list of Philippine Space Agency that will be sorely affected because of this disapproval coming from DBM. Kasi baka mamaya, kaya naging yun ang rason. For example, yung sinasabi ni Senator Amy, yung mga agricultural data, etc. Baka may gumagawa na kasi yan. Meron ba? Baka yung DA gumagawa na yan. Yung sinasabi niyo pong ibang supposed to be na gusto nyong gawin, baka ginagawa na ng Pag-asa yan, o baka ginagawa na ng DOE yan, etc. No? So baka mayroong mga overlapping. I think it's really important to, how in our experience here in the Senate, it's really how you market your agency, and you show us the cost benefit of when we put in the money that you're asking for. I remember last year your agency was provided with additional 200 million from this committee, and I would also ask that later on. No, I think the 200 million was for MOOE and for capital outlay. So things like that. No, in short, bottom line is that we wanted to help you, but you have to help us and give us ammunitions on how we'll be able to defend your budget. So again, going back to my first question, ano yung mga priority list na you feel is very important, especially that we are in the midst of the pandemic?
Thank you, Senator Villanueva, for that. Well, our priority, really, the big chunk of that 1.8 billion peso request goes into continuing the development ng Mula satellite.
Satellite.
Yes.
Okay.
This is already, I mentioned, started by DOST with an initial seed funding. So na-set up na po itong project na to. Nandiyan po ang mga engineers, and they've initiated the activities in terms of planning and building this satellite. So this one will hit several targets po in terms of priority needs ng Pilipinas. First of all, it's to retain our capability with really difficult, high-value technologies for building high-value industries and a knowledge workforce. So I think the resilience of our economy also depends on the kind of activities that our workforce is able to provide, and the capacity of our industries to build differentiated and innovative products. So marami pong natututunan sa space technology that will cascade to such capabilities. Yung natututunan po natin in terms of building satellites does not only go into space, it can go to other industries. It can go into oil and drilling. It can go into geothermal wells. It can go into mining. It can go into undersea environments. Essentially, places po na naglalagay tayo ng technology na kakalimutan na natin kasi hindi natin mabalikan. Kasi kailangan gumana siya. Hindi po dapat masira. So yun yung mga klaseng capability na gusto natin.
This is not, sorry not to interrupt, and this is not overlapping the functions or whatever. For example, you talk about oil drilling. Hindi to ginagawa ng Department of Energy. Talagang kayo lang ba makakagawa nito? Yung sinasabi nyo sa mining that would be affected, hindi to ginagawa ng DENR.
Sir, well, they acquire technologies. So, what this capability, we're at the upstream of that in terms of building the technologies that enable such applications, perhaps in a more sovereign and more independent manner. No, and of course, other everyday objects that can trickle from these technologies that we learn. Not to mention building up our universities to offer more advanced studies, so that they can create a multiplier effect in terms of the... So yung po nakita nating role ng space agency. So priority po talaga matuloy yung pagbuo natin ng satellite. Otherwise, our investments, speaking of wasted investments, yung ginugol po natin in building Diwata 1, Diwata 2, Mayo 1, 2, 3, 4, and soon 5 and 6 will be put to waste. Because the people will lose interest when they see that we cannot support them in terms of continuing such activities and multiplying their number, so that some of them can go to industry, some of them can go to academia, some of them can stay in PhilSA, some of them can go to other government agencies. That's a big loss that might happen.
And let's talk about the importance of this satellite that we are talking about. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is crucial considering the increased demand for internet bandwidth to support the work from home arrangements of Filipino workers. Is that a fair statement?
Ito pong satellite nito is for Earth observation. So it carries a camera in terms of instead of parang internet radios. But there's a different class of satellites which carry internet radios, which we can't really say are very different. Especially yung mga internet satellites na lumalabas po ngayon, they're kind of similar size and similar category as yung mga diwata natin. Ganun po kalalaki, ganun kaliliit. At saka yung orbit nila, hindi na sila yung sobrang taas na geostationary. Nasa lower Earth orbit sila. Similar to where Diwata 1, Diwata 2 is. So yung requirements in terms of building satellites like Diwata 1, Diwata 2 mula, that can also be applied eventually to building satellites that can provide internet because magkaiba lang po yung kanilang payload. Yung isa camera, ito po mga radyo na high-speed radios. And actually, yung mga satellites na mula na kumukuha ng pictures also carry radios because we need to communicate with them, to command them, and we also need to download the data from them. So
It's not necessarily totally different. It's like parang 110 yung isa, 220 yung isa, pero kuyantihan pa rin yun.
Meron nuances, yes, there are technical differences, but the skill set that our Filipino engineers and scientists will learn by building one can be adapted to build a newer class of satellites and set us up for the future.
I remember kasi listening to the presentation of the ICT. By the way, are you coordinating with the ICT? Meron ba kayong... Yes, Senator Amy.
Yeah, sorry. Magpa-follow up lang ako sa statement mo. Kasi nga, ang liliit ng budget nitong mga to. Yung DICT, DOST, tapos yung UP, pagkatapos yung Philippine Space. Hindi ba sila nag-aambag-ambag niyan? Kasi kanina, sinabi nga yung sa SpaceX satellite ng Maya, nagtulungan kayo ng DOST. Paano yung DICT? Because napakarami ninyong goals and targets and functions. Parang for me, mas maganda siguro kung i-tailor muna natin, i-cartel muna natin sa pinaka-importante ngayon, which is the provision of reliable and cheap internet. Doon muna tayo tumutok. Tapos lahat ng effort punta doon, and then ambag-ambag na lang lahat ng department kasi yun ang talagang sigaw ng bayan eh. Kung maaari bang gawin yun, can we just make an effort to focus all the energies and budgets towards that in the meantime? Because I think all these other functions, while valid and important, are not as urgent and overwhelming as the lack of decent internet connection. And I really like what he said, na since we're an archipelago, mas mahal yung land, mas inconvenient yung undersea cable, pinaka-okay talaga yung space. I kind of agree. I'm not so sure about the cost-benefit, but definitely it's logical. So, yun lang manifestation ko, Chairman. Siguro tutukan talaga nila ng internet, lahat-lahat sila, sabay-sabay.
Yes, thank you very much, Senator Amy. And that's why I've been pounding on that particular issue of having, different agencies in charge of almost the same thing. Or perhaps, even if it's not the same thing, nag-i-intertwined. So, gusto natin talagang makita sino ba talaga yung humahawak nito and pondohan natin doon natin ilagay yung ating salapi. Anyway, let's hear from Director General Joel.
Sir Member, thank you po. We support this kind of activity where there's some consolidation or some convergence happening. Ang PhilSA po was brought into existence as really our primary policy, planning, coordinating, implementing, and administrative entity for all space-related matters. So kaya po, with regard to connectivity or Earth observation, doon po kami nakafocus yung space segment na tinatawag. So for various applications, whether our satellites carry cameras or radios for internet, we are here to promote the space segment of it. Which we really believe is important as a capability, not just to acquire the technology, but really to invest in endogenous capacity in our country. to set ourselves up for the future. So we know how vital the internet is now. It was not invented 5 or 3 years ago. It was invented from a series of innovations that happened from half a century. So that it necessitated that kind of foresight that led to this kind of convenience that we're using now. So ganun po ang space, ma'am. We may be ambitious, but really space is about ambition. In my view, we put up a space agency because we have aspirations and ambition as a country. So we support po this consolidation and this convergence of resources. And if it has to do with space matters, then dyan po ang PILSA. Salamat po.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, makikibalita lang ako kasi dati naririnig ko sa mga kaibigan na hirap daw kayo mag-recruit at mag-retain ng employees dahil sa opisina ninyo sa Clark. Ang layo-layo daw ninyo sa mga centers of academe, of research. Is that still true?
Thank you, Senator. Wala pa naman po kami sa Clark. Nasa Quezon City pa lang po kami. And very accessible.
So premature. Baka they're just anxious that they'll have to move.
At saka po, pag napupunta na kami sa Clark, we will make sure that we will have a very conducive and productive environment that people will really look forward to working there and decongesting Metro Manila po. Yun po.
Senator Jaime, I'm still supporting that idea of putting government offices at Clark. Mas malapit sa atin yun.
Mas
Anyway.
na doon, di hamak.
Yes, following it up, no, the issues of Senator Jaime with regard to employees. Currently, you have 200 personnel. You made mention a while ago.
200 items po that we're filling up. Right now, we're between 50 and 60 people po right now.
Right now, it's even less than 70, 60? Only 60?
60 po. In process po kasi yung hiring namin. And we're doing that. We're filling up the 200 positions currently. So nakaabot na po kami ng 60 people.
And how many, by percentage, ballpark figure? 70% probably would be technical?
Well,
administrative, mga ganon?
Ang target po namin, eventually, of the 200 is we have a target of 70% technical po. That's the design of our organizational structure and staffing pattern. Now, currently, if you look at the current composition, marami po doon medyo, in the legal, business, and the administrative aspects because they're needed in the setting up. Currently, yung pong mga technical groups, although meron na pong handful within PhilSA, like our directors and some of our engineers, we continue working with the universities sa Stamina for Space, the program ng project-based activity, at saka po with DOST-ASTI as part of transitioning capabilities. So nandun pa naman po sila. We keep tabs with them, yung mga tao na nasa project-based positions.
Yeah, kasi parang titignan ko yung PhilSA has no personal services allocation for 2021 di ba? Parang your budget for 2021 was sourced from miscellaneous personnel benefits fund. Is that correct?
Yes, Senator, because the reason is that our OSSP was approved in October 2020 only. So yun po, although we thank the DBM, no, we felt it was processed very expeditiously. We submitted it in May, and by October we got approval po. So we're still filling up the positions.
You know, as policymakers, we look at all the aspects of how you run the agency, how the potential of making an impact. For example, is there already a study or you already anticipated how big is the potential for employment generation by space-related businesses in the country? Can you share it with us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, in terms of the potential manpower, that is something that precisely we want to conduct a baseline study in terms of how many people are doing these sort of activities now in industry and academe, and both upstream and downstream. I think upstream medyo wala po siguro tayong makikita doon. Yung mga are there existing companies that employ engineers that build satellite components. Meron po siguro sa aerospace, which is civilian aircraft, but not for space mismo. But in one of my slides, which I did not show, there was an Australian government study for APEC which estimated the current value ng utilizing space data in the Philippines at about 657 million US dollars. That's divided across various sectors. In terms of, let me see po, it's agriculture, fisheries, mining. So ang estimate po nila out of the $657 million for agriculture, the value of our space economy, space data in particular, $107 million, no, locating fish stocks, algal blooms, assessing forest conditions, preventing illegal logging. Mining estimated at $40 million, mainly for environmental compliance. Transport, optimizing logistics, $150 million. So may breakdown po sila sa report. Ang projection po nila, this can grow in a decade to tenfold, to about
To tenfold?
tenfold po, 6.6
Tenfold.
billion US dollars with collaboration across APEC economies and with targeted investments in space capabilities, particularly, both
Sige.
upstream and downstream. po.
I'm really interested on this particular issue. If we can submit to this committee, this study. But I wanted to focus actually dun sa potential for employment generation, no? Baka makita natin yan, yung comparative study perhaps with other countries na gaya ng Pilipinas or Asian countries na po pwede natin tignan. Just to move forward, no, we wanted to finish early today. We have 2 more hearings after this. Out of the total 349 million 2021 budget of Philippine Space Agency, it has only obligated 20 million or 5.95% as of June 30, 2021. Ito ba yung binabanggit nyo kanina? Kaya, I mean, I wanted to find out the reason for this low obligation rate, and perhaps if you can give us the reason, and if you can present to us your catch-up plan in spending to improve your obligation rate, DG Joel.
Thank you, Senator Villanueva. Well, the reason for that really is we had to, like a diesel engine, medyo konti po kailangan mag-init ng konti. Starting this year, we had...
Pero June 30 na ho kasi, ito kalahating taon na.
Thank you, sir. Yes, we had to constitute our Bids and Awards Committee earlier this year. We thank the DOST for helping us at the start of this year. We had a memorandum of agreement with them to utilize the back ng DOST. But our catch-up plan po is significantly by end of this year, we are targeting 97% obligation, even up to 100%. Kasi po, malaking chunk dyan, yung aming design.
Sir, we're only talking about obligating the funding, ha? We're not even talking about the disbursement.
Ang disbursement po, habol rin po doon, yes. You're right po, we're doing our best to catch up on that. But there's going to be 2 or 3 projects that are bigger chunks of that. In particular, yung kontrata po nung magde-design nung complex clock as stipulated by law. So we allocated resources doon. We're also expecting delivery of our computing equipment and capital outlay and our vehicles this year. So we're submit po a catch-up plan for that. So we have been looking at that intensively and seriously, and we need to improve that po.
Yes, siguro pa-submit na lang, DG, but I'm a little concerned about your target to obligate the funding before the end of the year. Obligating pa lang ho yun eh. So I'm looking forward to a faster way of doing it, because you're obligating. Kailan pa yun? Kung 2-3 years pa, so parang nasayang yung budget, no? Ganun yung magiging dating sa atin yan. I'm just giving you the heads up of what would be like for this representation to stand up here in the plenary of the Senate and defend your budget. I will definitely get all sorts of questions regarding this particular issue. So I hope that you can help the committee, especially humihingi po tayo ng additional funding. Now, PhilSA is not only looking into Earth observation satellites, but also into satellites that provide yung internet connectivity, no? Yung incentivized project, which stands for Introducing Non-Geostationary Satellite Constellations Test Deployments to Improve Internet Service. They will conduct an open call for satellite companies to conduct test deployments in selected rural areas in the country. I think this will allow the performance of new satellite technologies to be demonstrated and assessed under local conditions ahead of planned or scheduled commercial service. We note that these test deployments will require sourcing products and services from Filipino companies that may open the doors for business opportunities. May we know what kind of, again, no, I wanted to focus on job opportunities here. What kind of job opportunities can result from this program? Are there companies right now that have already submitted proposals for this project, sir?
Thank you, sir, for that question. Well, the companies we're inviting to participate in these trials are these satellite internet providers. Actually, there are companies that already provide satellite internet in the Philippines, but they use the geostationary satellites. These are satellites that are 30,000 kilometers above us. So isa pong, I guess, one feature of that is kapag mag-video conferencing tayo using these geostationary satellites, medyo may delay po. Pero itong mga bagong satellites, mas mababa yung orbit nila. So mas maikli yung travel time ng signal.
Ilan lang yan, sir? Gaano ka baba compared to dun sa GEO?
Between 400, for low Earth orbit, around 400, 600 kilometers. So below 2,000 kilometers. Tapos yung medium Earth orbit, below 10,000 kilometers. So nakakat po drastically yung tinatawag na round trip time ng signal from the remote area to the gateway. Kasi yung satellite po, para siyang bent pipe. Paakyat, tas pababa. So satellite only acts as like a relay. So that's one, I guess, innovation of these low Earth orbit satellites. Now, in order to cover the entire planet or a country like the Philippines, kailangan po nila hundreds, if not thousands of satellites. So that's what we mean by engaging these companies. It can, because these satellites can be, tend to be replenished more regularly. And there's a higher volume of them, it can open opportunities for supply chain to our companies that may be in electronics, semiconductor, materials, machining, etc. So yun po yung ang ating gustong i-push with the Philippine Space Development Fund. First of all, can we engage companies like this for some know-how transfer and capacity building also, just as we did with DIWATA, Earth observation satellites, but this time for internet satellites. And then as they do business here, perhaps it would open the door for local companies to explore getting into the supply chain of these companies by components. So I guess that would cascade po to job creation.
And this is again part of the very first priority program na naapektuhan dahil hindi in-approve ng DBM yung ano nyo, I mean, very little, less than 10% was approved in the National Expenditure program submitted to us. Isa pa no na kanina I was listening dun sa presentation and you're also set to introduce yung mobilizing sa space data for national security, maritime domain awareness and economic development program, which is a data processing program if I'm correct, no? And this would ensure that satellite data such as photos are quickly transmitted and accessible to end users. Siguro kasama ho dyan yung Pag-asa, hindi ba? Receiving real-time information on typhoons, etc. Now, aside from real-time mapping of typhoons, and this is not, again, I have been asking this question for quite some time. This is not in duplication of whatever Pag-asa is doing, no? Kagaya kanina, sinabi natin, ito ba hindi ginagawa ng DOE, hindi ginagawa ng DENR. How will the satellite information system help in addressing the challenges we are facing today, such as managing the transmission of COVID? Binanggit nyo kanina yan sa presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah. What our focus on in these downstream applications are the tools and the capabilities po. So it's not duplicating what these agencies are doing. In fact, we can see it as a way of empowering them further by leveraging space technologies and space capabilities. So kung hindi pa po nakikita yung value ng paggamit ng space data, doon po kami pwede pumasok. And that's where we promote these capabilities. So sa downstream po, yung binibuild nating capability, yung mga tao rin that can process the data, they can use techniques like yung naririnig po natin ng mga machine learning, artificial intelligence. In fact, we have a short video that highlights this. No, ginagamit po natin yung AI to detect ships in bodies of water para ma-distinguish siya with rock formations or land formations, and we use it also to identify prospective productive fishing grounds, no, for in municipal waters. So yung capability po na yon ang gusto natin build up. In fact, ang role po ng PhilSA dito, not to duplicate, but to promote this capability to these agencies so that with their respective mandates, they can carry it forward. And kami po sa PhilSA will continue to be several steps ahead in terms of the tools and technologies. So we can, in terms of the R&D, so we can cascade them to operations later on. So yun po, yung ibang agencies po, ang focus nila, mandate nila, whether it's fishing, weather prediction, agriculture, etc., they can use certainly tools that come from our space capabilities and our satellites. So that's where we see ourselves in the value.
Now I understand, yes, but I think not fully. But I remember seeing in the news about this fighter jet or plane that crossed the airspace, I think in Bicol, and then it was seen in Palawan, etc. Tapos wala na eh. Hindi ko na narinig kung ano yung nangyari dito. Did you hear about that particular news item? And perhaps kung masasabi nyo sa amin na ito tulad yan, yung mga ganyang pagkakataon, you could be of help if you have this funding from the government.
Thank you, sir. Well, our MULA satellite will have instruments on board that can receive transmissions from ships and airplanes. So yung pong mga transponders nila na nagtatransmit to identify themselves, kaya po yun i-monitor with satellite technology. So that helps in our situational awareness, both maritime and airspace. So it's not just the land infrastructure that can monitor these objects and their transmissions, but also our satellite assets. So that's parang secondary radar po yun, na pinipick up nung satellite yung mga transmissions from these ships and boats that are in our territory.
Yes, Senator Marcos, yeah, you're raising your hand, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, biglang naalala ko, may nabasa ako kasi nung June yata na pumirma ang Philippine Space ng agreement on space cooperation with the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs and with the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. Makakatulong ba sa atin yon? Anong purpose ba nun? Kasi parati tayong excited pag may nababasang ganyan, tapos parang wala naman nahihinatnan. Ano bang purpose nun?
Thank you, Senator Marcos. Yes, that's very useful for us. That's very helpful to us. And in fact, also we bring things to the table for these agreements. So yung pong UNUSA, we are celebrating World Space Week next week. And we have lined up several activities also in cooperation with UNUSA for these capacity building activities po. Yung UN Office of Outer Space Affairs runs several programs under the Committee on Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, which by signing this agreement, it will help facilitate and unlock these programs for us to access. So this is for gaining further capabilities in using space data for disaster resilience, also about space economy initiative and space law and space policy. So yun po yung impact.
Because as we know, there's increasing aggressiveness and belligerence, at least diplomatically, in the West Philippine Sea, and Japan, despite its non-military stance, has overturned many of its traditional policies. So I was just wondering kung may military o national security aspect ba yan?
Yung pong ating satellites and our proposed satellites and our mobilizing space data also support national security, ma'am. In fact, one way to address that is really by building sovereign capability in this area. So it's not just, I guess, our fighter jets and our war machines, but also our infrastructure that can gather relevant and timely data for us. So doon po pumapasok yung dalawang priority programs namin, which are before you today, yung pag-continue ng satellite development natin, at saka yung paggamit ng space data. I should say po that we are in close coordination and cooperation with members of the intelligence, security, and defense establishment through a decadal survey that we're not just thinking of the requirements now, but we're also thinking about the requirements over the next decade. The DND is also a member of the Philippine Space Council, which is currently being chaired interim by the Department of Science and Technology Secretary de la Peña. So marami po tayong venues by which we are interfacing and engaging different sectors po. Defense, security, environment, agriculture, etc. So yun pong aming close coordination.
Thank you. That's good news. Although, of course, we don't want to get dragged into any kind of conflict and need to be friends with everyone in the region, including the West Philippine Sea. But I've said before, Mr. Chairman, that build should evolve into a build 2.0 because it shouldn't merely be roads and bridges. We've already seen the great success of the Duterte administration in that area. But I think even pre-pandemic, it's become very evident that we cannot get stuck with infrastructure defined merely as roads and bridges, but should include health and social protection, should include the digital infrastructure required. And a new formulation of build 2.0 is urgent and important. Just to put that on record, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you very much, Senator Amy. I cannot agree more. When you talk about infrastructure, highway, hindi lang roads and bridges yan, no? Digital infrastructure is very important. Yung social protection, as you made mention, and definitely we have to improve our build programs, and dapat palakihin natin ito, and we make sure na nagagawa natin efficiently. So maraming salamat. If there are any other member present and would like to pose some questions, I would yes, Senator Amy.
There being no further interpolations from any other member, I move for the approval of the Philippine Space Agency's budget at the level of the Subcommittee J under Senator Villanueva to be endorsed to the Mother Committee of Finance and thereafter for full debate in the plenary. I so move.
Are there any objections? Chair hears none. The motion is carried, and the budget of Philippine Space Agency is deemed submitted to the Mother Committee, and for the Mother Committee to submit it on the floor for plenary discussion. Thank you very much, Director General Joel. Thank you, and congratulations to Philippine Space Agency. And we look also forward to submitting those data that we are asking for. We wanted to be of help and just give us a clear picture of what we would be able to accomplish, how much we need, priority 1, 2, 3, ganun ho, para makatulong po kami. Maraming salamat, DG Joel. Thank you. At this juncture, we'll proceed to our next item, which is the Department of Science and Technology, DOST. We will give the floor to Secretary Fortunato de la Peña. Sir, you have the floor, and thank you for being physically present here.
Thank you, and greetings to the Honorable Senator Amy Marcos. I would like to make a taped presentation. I recorded already last night my presentation. Approve, sige, Secretary, and we can play it, and then we will further listen to our good Secretary. Please, thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to present to you the proposed 2022 budget of the Department of Science and Technology. Next slide. We have identified our budget thrust for 2022, the acceleration of the generation of new knowledge. This is through R&D, support the recovery and transition of MSMEs to the new normal. These are our productivity programs, developing the county's human resources through scholarships, promotion of regional technology-based development to reduce inequality. And we have, of course, the startup development. We have the strengthening of the business and service continuity, as well as the leveraging on alliances with different sectors. Next slide, please. We have a total proposal of 24,338,865,000. Next slide, please. This is divided according to personal services, MOOE, and capital outlay. The biggest is MOOE at 77%, followed by personnel at 19%, and capital outlay at 4%. Next slide, please. We would like to compare our budgets and obligations for 2020, 21, 22. We had an actual obligation of 18.928 billion in 2020. We have a present GAA allocation of 25.187 billion, and the proposed budget under the National Expenditure Program is 24.338 billion. Next slide, please. We have made significant accomplishments. Of course, I cannot present all of them, so we just selected examples to illustrate. So we have here, for example, our implementation of the Science for Change program, which has several components. We have the intensification of research and development. We have pushing growth in the regions through science and technology, the development of our human resource pool for science and technology, building resilience through disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation, maximizing international linkages, and responding to COVID-19 challenges. Next slide, please. For the Science for Change program, one of the components is the needs centers in the regions. And to date, we have already established 38 of these. Each needs research center is covering a particular area, and this is now distributed all over the country. Initially, we had more of this in the agricultural area, but this time we are now having more in the industry, energy, and emerging technology areas, including health. Next slide, please. We have a complete listing here of the 38 needs centers in the regions that we have helped support establish. Next slide, please. We have our project to motivate our enterprises, our industries to partner with the research institutions, particularly the universities, in doing the research projects. So we have so far approved 73 of these projects. Next slide, please. This is the listing distributed all over the country. Next slide, please. And those cradle projects are actually benefiting specific companies, but can be shared also with others. The RD Lead program is our way of utilizing our national experts to help the different regions of the country in building R&D capability. They are already distributed all over the regions. Next slide, please. These are the places where we have dispatched national RD leaders and the places where they have been assigned. Next slide, please. We have a new program under the Science for Change program, the Business Innovation through Science and Technology. This is something similar to our setup program, but this time it is for helping set up research facilities within companies. Next slide, please. The accomplishments in the area of agriculture are given examples here. For example, our researches on the native pig, our researches on the African swine fever problem. Next slide, please. And we have, of course, our researchers on smart agriculture. Next slide, please. We have also our interventions through agricultural technologies in meeting the needs of certain communities who have been affected either by the pandemic or by some disasters. Next slide, please. We have R&D on health, and the biggest of which is the drug discovery program. We have supported 62 projects under this, and we have the program for our biomedical devices like Agapay and Tayo. Next slide, please. We have, of course, a big program to address malnutrition, and this is led by the Food and Nutrition Research Institute. Next slide, please. This is the Tuklasunas program that I had mentioned, where we had a total project cost of 222 million for 2021. Next slide, please. We have introduced a new program, the Nutritional Genomics program, which will be of big help, okay, for early detection of nutritional deficiency. Next slide, please. We have, of course, continued our Small Enterprise Technology program. So far, it has already benefited 4,199 companies. Next slide, please. We also have the community empowerment through science and technology, primarily addressing marginalized communities through science and technology interventions. Next slide, please. We have introduced new facilities at UST. We have the Advanced Manufacturing Center using additive manufacturing. Next slide, please. We have the Robotics and Mechatronics Laboratories. Next slide, please. We have the new Metals and Engineering Innovation Centers in the regions. Next slide, please. We have the Technology Business Incubators. We have 47 of them all over the country, plus 16 innovation hubs. Next slide, please. Of course, our Startup Grant Program has already started. Next slide, please. And of course, our Human Resource or Scholarship Program, where we have more than almost 40,000 being administered. Next slide, please. So we have also improved our Balik Scientist program implementation through the Balik Scientist Act. And next slide, please. We have also our projects on disaster risk reduction and mainly through innovations at Pag-asa and PBOX. Next slide, please. These are also the innovations at PBOX. Next slide, please. At Pag-asa. Next slide, please. And of course, the maximization of international linkages. Next slide, please. So we also had a role in our vaccine program. We were in charge of vaccine evaluation and selection. Next slide, please. Of course, we are pushing for the Virology Institute of the Philippines, which will be deliberated in Senate. Next slide, please. And we had the products introduced like the PCR kit, the Reware. Next slide, please. The herbal medicines used for COVID-19. Next slide, please. And of course, the startup companies for OFWs and the assistance to provinces which would like to introduce science and technology for their strategic plans. So we have also the latest, which is the Safe Travel Advisory, the Smart the S-Pass. Next slide, please. And that is our proposed 2022 budget, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Secretary De La Peña. If you wanted to add some more, we'll give you more time. Parang ako napabilis talagang speed yung presentation, but very interesting, and we are hoping that we'll be able to help you looking at your budget from 2021 to 2022. It's 860 million lower. I remember last year when every single agency and department would come here in the Senate, halos lahat in-slash po talaga. Pero pagdating po sa inyo, yung mga senador, nakita yung kahalagahan ng DOST, kaya nag-augment pa po tayo, if you would recall. But right now, ito, 860 million lower. No? But I'll give you the floor, Secretary De La Peña, if you wanted to add some more. And there was a concern made by there's this concern made by Senator Aimee, but later on, no, we'll go to that. But I just wanted to find out if you want to add some more with the presentation, and what important programs would be discontinued or would be affected, PAPs na naapektuhan dito sa binabang budget. And this is just comparing your budget from
this year to next year, no? I'm not even sure how much did you actually propose and how much was approved by the Department of Budget and Management. Please, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. And first of all, I just would like to mention that we proposed a 42 billion budget to DBM, and what they approved is the 24 plus billion. The ones that were affected really were the new programs that we are proposing, and later on, maybe if you want to hear what are these new programs, very high priority that were not funded, I can mention them. And of course, the biggest loss was really on capital outlay. In the year 2021, we have a relatively big capital outlay allocation, primarily for Pag-asa, a smaller one for PBOX, and for the Philippine Science High School. So these capital outlay projects were practically deleted for 2022. And we appealed for one particular capital outlay project, which is the construction of a new Food and Nutrition Research Institute building, because the current building, at that time when it was constructed, we still did not know about the faults, but we found out that the FNRI building is sitting right on top of a fault, and actually it has already been manifested in the infrastructure, which has been showing some cracks. And so DBM approved something like 350 million for that. I would like to take advantage.
Chair, nakakahiya kasi, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
nakakahiya ito nangyari dahil sa FNRI. DOST pa man din, hindi na-identify na nandun sa West Valley Fault. Ba't nagkaganon?
Opo, itinayo. Parang napaka-ironic. Hindi yung ST yung nandun. Yes. Your Honor, gaya nga nung nasabi ko, no, itayo, ito luma na po, ito na itayo, hindi pa natin masyadong pinag-uusapan yung mga fault nung panahon na yun. Oo. Kaya yun ay malaking risk din.
You cannot do anything with that food and nutrition research building. Sayang naman kasi napatayo na.
Opo, but it's, I think, more than 30 years now. And actually,
So hindi pa ako pinapanganak,
kumbaga
Secretary.
sa yung nag-serve na rin siya ng mahabang panahon. Okay? So I would like to take advantage, Your Honor, of the presence of my two undersecretaries here and one of our council executive directors to give an additional briefing on the Science for Change program. This is Yusek Guevara, Yusek Solidum, particularly on those related to disaster risk reduction, and Dr. Jaime Montoya, pertaining to the health programs, particularly those related to COVID. Thank you, Your Honor, with your permission.
Sure, with the permission of our colleagues here, we'll recognize. Who do you want me to recognize first?
Yusek Rowena Guevara.
Yusek Rowena Guevara. Yes, ma'am, you're recognized.
Your Honors, magandang hapon po. The Science for Change program was created when we realized that there was disparity in R&D funding across the regions. In 2016, about 85% of our R&D budget was going to only 3 regions: NCR, Central Luzon, and Calabarzon. The other 14 regions were only getting the 15% of R&D. Knowing that the human resource for S&T is all over the country, we decided to design a program called the Science for Change program, specifically to address that disparity in R&D funding. One of the first sub-programs of the Science for Change was first to capacitate the higher education institutes and state universities and colleges all over the country that do not seem to be able to submit proposals for R&D to DOST. We did that by deploying the R&D leaders. The R&D leaders are veteran researchers who have shown the ability not just to do R&D, but also to lead. And so far, we have deployed total of 42 RD leaders all over the country. Kaya nakita po namin, nung nag-call na kami ng mga proposals noong 2020, 2021, ang dami na pong researchers from all over the country na nakakasubmit ng proposals. In fact, this year po, we had a total of 888 R&D project proposals. Tapos sabi namin, kailangan mo rin ng infrastructure. So we put up the niche centers in the regions for R&D. Medyo kakaiba po itong mga NICERs na to, no? Kasi ina-address nila yung pangangailangan ng region. So for example po, sa Nueva Vizcaya, nandun po yung for citrus. Kasi yun po talaga yung main product nila doon. Tapos doon naman po sa Naawan ay sea cucumber. Bigay ko lang pong example yung sea cucumber center sa MSU Naawan. In just 2 years, they were able to increase the number of fertilized sea cucumber from 3 million to 8 million. At naipamahagi po to dun sa mga fisher folk, kaya lumaki po yung income ng mga tao doon. At dito po sa NICER, nire-require namin na may approval at endorsement ng Regional Development Council para hindi lang pagkatapos ng research papers ang mapoproduce, kundi magagamit talaga ng region yung research output nitong mga centers. Nakapagtayo na po kami ng 38 NICERs, totaling 1.89 billion, and we're happy to report that 70% of the funding for NICERs went to the other regions, not to NCR, Calabarzon, and
Good, no, ma'am. Let me cut you there. Just one question that I'd like to ask. I remember actually last year, if you recall, I mean, the previous year, when you talk about yung CES, di ba? Parang yung unang launch natin yan sa Region 3 lang, and then we expanded it nationwide. And I'm glad na yun din po yung ginagawa nung NICER program natin. Ma'am, how many SHEIs or higher education institutions have been established as regional research centers under this niche centers in the region?
there are 38 centers.
38 now.
Opo.
Okay, thank you. And our goal is to increase that further, no?
Ang target po namin by June next year, maka 50 na po tayo.
50 by next year. Thank you. Sige ho, please proceed.
And then we noticed that in the Philippines, majority of the R&D is being spent by the government. We wanted to make sure that the private sector will also do R&D because this will make them competitive. Para hindi sila matakot mag-research, pinartner namin sila with the academic sectors. Ang tawag namin dito po ay Collaborative R&D to Leverage Philippine Economy o CRADLE. At meron na po tayong 73 CRADLE projects. Yung mga naunang projects, example ko lang po yung isa.
Yung 73, ma'am, are you talking about HEI? 73 HEIs?
Bali
Or
po
73 projects?
73 projects with 74 industry partners and 32 universities.
32 HEIs. These are all SUCs or
Halo-halo.
Halo na. Okay,
Apo.
thank you.
Ang favorite example po namin yung University of Southeastern Philippines. Ang naging partner nila yung IHOS Resource Center. Yung IHOS Resource Center is a banana plantation with 600 hectares. Pinahiram nila yung 10 hectares dito sa University of Southeastern Philippines para gumawa po ng surveillance system for reducing yung kanilang pag-spray ng pesticide. Ang natuwa po kami, millions po yung na-save ng kumpanya dahil dito sa ginawa ng USEP na combination po ng Internet of Things saka Artificial Intelligence at saka image processing. Sobrang tuwa nila. Ngayon po, 150 hectares na yung ginagamitan nitong research output nila. So ganito po yung CRADLE para magkaroon po ng kumpiyansa ang mga industry na magpa-research sa academe. Ang ginagawa namin dito, ang cap po nito ay 5 million kada project. Tapos yung company, kailangan magbigay siya ng up to 20% in cash or in kind. Tapos yung last po naman, yung Business Innovation through Science.
Before we move to that program, no, I just want to place on record. It's good thing that you're helping USEP. First of all, in Bayanihan 2, this representation actually moved for a 3 billion augmentation for our state universities and colleges so that they'll be able to do something with their digital and smart campuses, no? And another initiative that we we pushed here in the Senate is, of course, is now a law, yung Doktor para sa Bayan Law. Itong University of Southeastern Philippines, yung USEP, is also a major recipient of that particular measure because before it was passed, there are 10 regions in the country that have zero medical school program. 10 regions with zero medical school program, no? So nauna yung USEP, binigyan natin ng 121 million, and it's gaining grounds, and I think this month they will be launching the medical school program of USEP. Kaya maganda ho itong collaborative research and development to leverage Philippine economy. Ang isang question ko lang ho, ito ho ba binawasan din po itong pondo for year for this program?
Your Honor, yung pong Science for Change is a bill that we are proposing para continuous yung funding niya.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Science for Change bill po ito yung aming pinapagawa.
Okay.
So far
okay.
po, kinukuha po namin sa mga pera po ng DOST, grant in aid, yung ginagamit dito. Pero eventually, ang hiling sana namin, maging batas po sana yung Science for Change. Para tuloy-tuloy po itong pag-solve natin dun sa disparity in R&D funding.
This collaborative efforts that you are doing is in coordination also with the private sector, no? And encouraging them to be part of this program.
The Regional Development Council and DTI po kasama po namin.
Yes. Sige. Thank you. Please continue. Thank you.
So, yung pong nasabi niyo yung USEP, as a result nitong kanilang first cradle project, yung sumunod nila mga projects, nakaabot po ng mga 25 million ang kanilang projects with industry. So parang nanganak po ng nanganak yung engagement. Yung isa cradle naman po yung sa University of San Agustin. Ang naging partner naman po nila ay Del Monte Corporation. Ang maganda, nakadiscover sila ng mga bagong chemicals sa pineapple na nakaka-reduce ng mga iba't ibang bagay para hindi tayo magkasakit. So, bagong discoveries po yun. Yung pang-apat po at last na program under Science for Change is the Business Innovation through SNT. Ito medyo kakaiba naman po to, Senator, kasi this time, magre-research na yung mismong kumpanya. Kasi hindi nagre-research yung mga companies natin, kaya dun po sa Global Innovation Index, mababa po yung ranking natin dyan. So, mga nabigyan na po natin ng this project funding ay Urbanext, Bioassets, saka Nanotronics. Puro high-tech po itong companies na to. Yung Urbanext po gagawa siya ng pharmaceutical grade ingredients. Yung Bioassets gagawa po sila ng diagnostics and genome sequencing. Tapos yung Nanotronics po ay nanotechnology materials po. So yung pangarap po natin, dumami yung MSMEs natin na high-tech ang ginagawa kasi high value po ang balik sa atin. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Yusek Guevara. Also wanted to spread into the records that this representation is a co-author of Science for Change Bill, together with the principal author, Senator Ping Lacson. Wanted to put that on record. And again, we have been espousing the importance of research and technology, and we've been very supportive of the programs of DOST. Anyway, just to add up to what I was trying to point sa mga higher education institutions, yung grants in aid, ilang na program po ito ng DOST, ilang HEIs din po ang current beneficiaries nitong grants in aid?
Sir, ang grants in aid po natin, 180 higher education institutes and state universities and colleges.
118?
180 po.
180, and that includes private, no? Sa SUCs, ilan? Para lang, kasi we're very concerned also being the chair of the Committee on Higher Education.
Yung sa SUCs po, mga 50% ng SUCs natin may involvement.
Okay. Dun sa 180 na denominator mo, 50% dyan SUCs.
Di po, mga 50 plus po or 60 SUCs.
60, okay. About ballpark. Sige, thank you. Thank you very much, Yusek Guevara. Next is we have Yusek Sulidu.
Yes, to talk about yung mga related sa disaster risk reduction.
Sige po, we'll be hearing from Yusek Solidum, sir. You're recognized, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Your Honors. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic, we have to make sure that we continue to prepare for natural hazards that frequently visit the country. Because of climate change, we are expected to be experiencing more intensified typhoons and sometimes extreme rainfall and drought. And because of this, Pag-asa has been really beefing up its national monitoring systems for various events like typhoons, floods. And so in this proposal, there were some budget that were not approved, but we hope that this be continued. For example, the um, continuance of the construction of the National Meteorological and Climate Center. And because of the current restriction of using mercury-based barometer and thermometer, these instruments also need to be replaced all over the country. Because of the varying intensification of extreme events in various places, Pag-asa has been developing flood forecasting and warning centers. They also need to put up Doppler radars in these different basins. For FIVOX, on the other hand, they have different stations all over the country for both volcanoes and earthquakes. But we also need to make sure that these instruments, which are top of the line, need to be maintained continuously. And these need to have available parts and support instruments. In particular, for volcanoes, we need to make sure that two stations need to be continued, one to be maintained in Bulusan, and the other one is because FIVOX has set up another station in Batangas Forta volcano. It needs communication equipment so that this can be an auxiliary station in case the volcano would erupt again. So both FIVOX and Pag-asa are doing their job despite the pandemic, but as a monitoring agencies, the instruments that they have need to be also maintained and replaced. Thank you, Mr. Senator.
Thank you, Yusek, no? Siguro yung basic question namin dito is yung ano yung affected sa inyong operations and how much are we looking at to help out dun sa hindi na-approve ng DBM?
We will be providing the list of the budget for these different agencies.
Sige,
Essentially,
sasama-samahin nyo na lang.
yes,
Okay. Sige po.
Secretary has a list po.
Okay.
Later.
And
Thank you.
siguro, Yusek, alam mo naman ako, very meticulous ako dito sa mga unfilled positions, vacancies sa mga government agencies kasi nakita, nag-trigger mo sa aming mga monitoring na ginagawa. Itong Pag-asa had the most vacancies at 216 and 171 unfilled positions. Can you talk to us about this? Anong bakit po, please, sir?
As you know, Pag-asa has an approved modernization bill. And aside from instrumentation, they need to upgrade their different positions. And the approval of these positions need to have the go signal also of the Department of Budget and Management. And they're still working it out po for these different positions. Malapit na po matapos. They are in the process of evaluating those that are candidates for these different positions. So, yung kalahati po ay na-fill up na, yung iba pa ay pinaprocess.
Do we have a timetable in doing so?
The instruction was for them to finish it within 1 year or less because this has been ongoing for the past several years.
Okay. We'll continue to monitor on that, sir. You know, it's been the advocacy of this representation because, you know, even when you talk about last Congress, we fought very, very hard to eliminate the evils of endo in the private sector, no? Ending contract. We pass it here. It's a priority measure. Unfortunately, just like that, a day after the meeting of the president with some business personalities, it was vetoed. And the whole time that we were discussing this particular measure, and as chairperson of the Committee on Labor, we would be getting statements from the private sector that we're trying to push them hard and force them not to be engaged in ending endo scheme, and yet the public sector is the biggest violator. And so every budget hearing, I look at this, vacancies, unfilled positions, even service of a contract of service. In fact, when I was with DESDA, I remember, and Ted would know about this, encountering government employees been there for 10, 15 years and still under contract of service. So I also filed a bill para sa public sector na yung mga matatagal na po dyan, dapat naman nabigyan na talaga sila ng item. There are some problems also that we are facing in government agencies na, for example, dun sa TESDA, I remember we don't have lawyers there. We only have one lawyer actually during my time for the last 5 years. And I asked the finance department, how could that be? Kasi yung item pala, wala talagang papasok na matinong lawyer dahil napakababa. So, kailangan ng adjustment. So, I'm asking this question kasi baka may mga ganong items, especially technical items, na hindi talaga suswak dun sa hinahanap nyo dahil to begin with, mali yung description ng item na yun or the salary grade allotted to that particular item. And the only reason why I keep on pounding on this is to help out our government agencies. Please, Yusek Solido.
Yes, sir. Just for the Pag-asa and even at FIVOX, we just cannot hire anyone to fill up the position. So they also for Pag-asa, they undergo training so that they can be filling up a very technical position. But I'd like to thank the opportunity for the Senator highlighting the positions that are needed. I'd like to probably relate the issue for Philippine Science High School, which I also supervise, because mental health is such a big problem now in our youth. The concern is that the items for the guidance counselor requires a master's in psychology, but the salary grade is also very low. So para pong hindi match yung requirement.
Exactly my point, no? How do you expect them to come in yung salary grade kababa-baba and then you're requiring them to be a master's degree graduate. So yeah, I'd like to get some of the data later on, no. Sige po, just to fast track the this budget deliberation, Secretary, who do I acknowledge next?
Your Honor, I just would like to mention that one good news is that the turnover rate in terms of our scientists and researchers has gone low. In other words, hindi na masyadong problema yung mga napakaraming umaalis at nag-abroad, ano? Kung minsan ang aming ngayong problema dahil wala namang bagong plantilla items, yung ating mga pinaaral ng PhD halos kung minsan nahihirapang maghanap ng pupuntahan kasi sa mga SUCs naman hindi rin nagdadagdag ng plantilla, sa private sector hindi naman nag-hire ng mga PhD, produce tayo ng produce dahil gusto nating maging competitive. So banggitin ko lang po in a very short siguro statement, Yusek Guevara can mention the S&T Fellows program that we have instituted. Hindi po ito plantilla item, pero parang contractual ito para doon sa ating mga PhDs para meron lang silang mapagbuhusan ng kanilang talent pagkatapos nilang makakuha ng PhD.
Sige, Yusek Guevara.
Your Honors, in the last 5 years, DOST has been producing 400 to 500 MS and PhD graduates per year. This is a far cry from we are producing 17 graduates in 2008. We have put up a program called S&T Fellows Program, wherein we can hire scientists with master's and PhD degrees for a contract of 5 years, with salary grades from salary grade 23 to salary grade 27. This is the only way that we will be able to attract this caliber of researchers, scientists, and engineers to work with the government instead of going out of the country. Thank you, sir.
Sige, thank you po. Next.
Can you presentation very brief is from our health R&D council executive director because I think napakaraming resources ang inuukol ngayon para sa mga pandemic-related research.
Yes, we recognize Executive Director Montoya. Please, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much po. Just very briefly, the Philippine Council for Health Research and Development, by virtue of Republic Act 10532, is the national coordinating body for health research. And if you will, of course, understand as early as 2020, with the occurrence of the pandemic, we had to respond to the need for conducting trials and researches for relevant to COVID-19. Since this was not allotted for, we had to realign our budget in 2020, which means we have to sacrifice some of the, in fact, ongoing projects with the hope that the budget will be approved for the following year. And in fact, it was approved in 2020 to cover for those that are continuing. However, for the 2022 budget, we actually have a 40% reduction as far as our GIA is concerned, which means that we have close to 100 million pesos worth of continuing programs that are not funded. And as I said, this has actually happened because of the prioritization or inclusion of COVID-19 related researches, which of course was a priority area not initially included in the priority research areas. So we have to respond to that. So yun na po ang aking sasabihin, and I'd like sana na kung pwede ay of course patuloy pa po ang problema ng COVID-19 at kami po ay maraming ginagawang researches. Nabanggit na rin po yan ni Secretary sa presentation. Gusto na po namin na ipagpatuloy po ang support po. Pero katunayan po nabawasan pa po yung aming pondo. Pati po yung aming continuing projects po ay binawasan. So ibig sabihin po,
Is it binawasan or tinigil?
Binawasan po.
Okay.
Kasi because of the approved net, actually to sa 40% reduction from 2021 budget. So we had a GAA of 515 million in 2021. Bumaba po to 307 million in 2022, which is a 40% reduction. Considering po na kami po ang gumagawa ng mga COVID-19 related projects po, at talaga naapektuhan po kami, pati po yung aming continuing hindi na pondohan. Which means ito na po yung mga ongoing. So,
Sige, can you elaborate more? Ito yung mga projects that you're implementing to address COVID. We want more ammunitions para makatulong ho kami.
Opo, we can provide you the list of the items not considered in the fiscal year 2022 net. Meron po kami listahan. We will provide you po. Pero in fact po kasi this includes not just COVID po kasi as I was saying, we have to prioritize for COVID at the expense of our continuing. Pero hindi nga po yan na-consider doon sa 2022. So ibig sabihin po, yung mga continuing na dapat na pondohan at ibinigay namin pansamantala sa COVID-19 ay hindi po nabigyan ng pondo.
Can you give us a specific program like
for example po, sa Tuklas Lunas, program po namin, discovery of cardiometabolic bioactives from plants in Central Philippines po. It was 15 million, hindi po in-approve yun, but it's an ongoing project. So, meron po tayong anti-cancer project din po, worth 1 million. Tapos yung, sa Tuklas Lunas po, is close to mga 30 million po. In total po yun na hindi in-approve, pero ongoing po yan. Tapos po yung sa iba po naming mga projects pa ay hindi rin po. Basta ang total po ng minus po yung yung capital outlay dahil kami po ay kailangan din namin ng bagong opisina po kasi kami po ay temporarily housed lang in one of the buildings po sa BOST. Ang aming GIA po, kung GIA lang po is about 100 billion po ang binawas. Pero kung kasama po yung request namin for improvement ng facility at yung yung building po, it will be amounting to 211 million.
Sige, okay.
Meron lang ako idadagdag.
Yes, please.
Actually, nung dati, hindi ko inaasahan masyado ang health research na panggagalingan ng mga bagong companies na po pwedeng mag-generate ng economic activity. But as it is turning out, ay maraming potential ang health R&D in terms of outputs na pwedeng mag-take off as spin-off companies. So, hindi lang siguro dalawa yung nangyari ngayong taon na ito. Yung isa dun sa mga diagnostic kit. At ito naman sumusunod tungkol sa mga biomedical devices. Iba pa yung mga herbal medicines na nung araw pa nag-take off. Kaya malaki ho ang potential na makakontribute sa economic activity, sa income at sa employment, ito mga R&D natin na may kinalaman sa health. Yun lang po, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Sec. Yes, you want to add some more, Yusek Guevara?
Thank you very much, Your Honor. I just wanted to cite kung ano po yung pinagkagastahan ng PCHRD na hindi na nakain na po yung kanilang budget. Yung pong, for example, studies natin on VCO, Lagundi, at Tawa-Tawa for COVID-19. Yung pong WHO Solidarity Trial po para dun sa mga therapeutics. Yung WHO Solidarity Trial for vaccine ng COVID-19. Tapos yung pong pang-test po nung variant doon sa Philippine Genome Center na pinapadalhan po ng mga samples, diyan po nagastos yung pera ng PCHRD na hindi na po napalitan ng DBM. Kaya po kulang yung budget nila. Thank you po.
Okay, thank you. Wala na, no, Secretary? Okay, let me start asking questions na kasi I'm sure I'll be encountering these questions by the time this representation would defend the budget of DOST. Now, I have some data here. No? Under Bayanihan 2, yung Philippine Textile Research Institute was allocated 77 million to establish the Medical Textile Testing Center. Now, as of June 30, 2021, 9.4 million lang has been obligated. Tapos 68.3 million remained unobligated. May we know the reason for this and what's the status now of the development of the testing center?
Yusek Guevara can respond to that. He's supervising the Philippine Textile Research Institute.
Yes, please, Yusek.
Thank you very much for that question. By December, bago po mag-December, bubukas na po yung center na yan. So, 100% po magagastos na yan. Na-delay lang po kasi naganap sila ng tamang suppliers for the equipment.
The reason being is they're looking for suppliers.
For the equipment. Kasi specialized equipment po yan, Senator. So, medyo natagalan yung paghahanap ng suppliers.
So, what's the timetable itong development of the testing center?
Bubukas po yan bago mag-end ang taon.
End of the year?
Senator, isa po yan sa natanggalan din po ng 45 million na continuing budget next year for PTRI.
Yes, and that's why I'm asking these questions because if we ask DBM about this, baka yun ang ibigay sa atin no? And then please for my education, no, if we can test the quality of our textiles and find them suitable for PPEs, this will support our local garment industry. Is that correct?
It will support the PPE manufacturing industry at saka ibang medical textiles.
And that we don't need to import PPEs, especially from Parmali.
Yes po.
Would you concur?
Yes.
Okay. So again, this would also prove that Filipinos can actually do it, and I think we should focus in generating jobs here in the country instead of looking elsewhere. Now, another thing, no? What is the reason for the reduction of the budget for the National Health R&D Program of the Philippine Council for Health Research and Development from 932 million 2021 ngayon ay 737 na lang. So that's 21% reduction. So, ano yung mga programs, major programs that will be affected because of this reduction? And I think this is ridiculous because we are in the middle of the pandemic. Research and on health program should be prioritized. Hindi ko maintindihan ito. Can you help me out? Ano yung reasons being given to us, sir?
Your Honor, yun nga ang sinasabi kanina ni Dr. Montoya na of course, mahirap matanto kung paano ang basis ng DBM po eh. Kaya anyway, Dr. Montoya, nabanggit mo na kanina na napakaraming ongoing na apektado.
Yes, and the reason daw, may binigay ho bang reason ng DBM? Wala. Basta ito lang gusto namin. Bahala na kayo. Thank you. Now, again, kanina natackle ko yung sa pag-asa dun sa unfilled positions. May catch-up plan na sila. I'm also hoping na meron din ang Philippine Science High School dahil of the 797 unfilled positions in the DOST, Pag-asa and the PSHSS ang pinakamalaki po no sa mga unfilled position.
Your Honor, nandito po ang Director ng Philippine Science.
Yes. Can you comment on that, ma'am? And have you considered yung kaninang pinag-uusapan natin, have you considered updating or revamping your plantilla positions to accommodate your contractual employees and make them regular employees? And then, yung mga items na ridiculous na you're asking for master's degree holders, pero yung item pang college graduate. No? Ilan ho ito kung meron po tayong data so we can point this out, ma'am, please.
Okay, magandang hapon po, Senator. Sa Philippine Science High School po, less than 200, napababa na po namin ang unfilled items gawa na nag-umpisa yung school year nitong August-September po. Pero yung pong total na yon ay total for the 16 campuses and the Office of the Executive Director. So ito po ay nasa iba-ibang region at hindi po kami maraming, kulang po kami ng applicants na merong nagpo-possess ng minimum qualification standard for the teaching positions. Also, naandun po yung sinabi ng problema ni Yusek Solidum na halimbawa po doon sa Guidance Service Associate, salary grade 12 lang po yung ino-offer namin, pero ang requirement ng CSC ay ang education master's degree, pagtapos dapat may license po. Nag-appeal na po kami dito, kaya lang sabi nila ang may requirement ng education at saka yung master's degree ay yung PRC group ng mga guidance associates. Nagre-request din po sana ako ng mga psychiatry, psychologist kasi syempre yung mental well-being is one of the key considerations of the students. But then the DBM said that they cannot give a psychologist or a psychiatrist position to Philippine Science High School because it's not a hospital.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, ma'am. This juncture, let me just acknowledge our dear colleague, the hardworking gentleman from Cavite, Senator Francis Tolentino. Sir, thank you for being here. Please feel free to butt in and intervene, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you. Let me continue, no. Yung ano naman ho, talk about unutilized budgets kasi ito laging pinag-uusapan ho dito sa Senado and ayoko lang na pag hinihingi natin sa DBM yung ating mga hinihingi, ito yung ibabalik sa atin, no. What's the reason for low utilization rates of the Philippine textile research? Ito na nga ho yun, no, yung you're saying yung catch-up plan by the end of the year, maka-catch up, meron ng catch-up plan, no, para ma-improve itong 59.8%. And ito, yung Forest Products Research and Development Institute, nasa 74%. Ito ba, because of the pandemic din, since PTRI and FPRDI had relatively higher utilization rates. I was looking at the previous years, mataas naman ho no? So, are we as confident dun sa binanggit nyo kanina, Yusek, for the other unit, itong Forest Products Research and Development?
Yes, Your Honor. We are confident that the allocated budget for them will be fully utilized. Thank you, sir.
Ito rin, Philippine Science High School System, in terms of absolute amount of unused funds, nakalagay ho dito with 330 million unused. Sa Office of the Secretary, 294 million. Sa Pag-asa, 131 million. Ito yung mga large amounts of unused funds given to us. No? May we know the reason for this, and what are the items or projects that were affected because of this?
Your Honor, halimbawa yung sa Forest Products Research and Development Institute, ito po mga research and development institutes namin, nagra-run po sila ng mga testing laboratories, ano? And siyempre, may mga budget yan para i-operate yung testing laboratories at para ma-meet yung mga clients na magde-demand ng services. Kami naman po kasi sa mga laboratories, hindi naman namin na i-keep yung income eh. Ibinibigay din sa treasury ron at maasa kami doon sa budget allocation para mabili yung mga required materials. Oo. Medyo naapektuhan din po yung ating clientele. Naapektuhan din po yung ating clientele in the sense na yung mga suki nating mga kumpanya na nagpapatesting ay medyo bumaba din ang kanilang demand. Dahil din sa pagbaba naman ng level of economic activity. Yun naman po sa Philippine Science High School, ang papaliwanag po yan kasi may epekto rin po yung remote learning.
So yung unused, mababalik na lang ba to or meron tayong program para magamit po ito?
Sir, the bulk of the unused funds from Philippine Science High School is due to the slowdown of its infrastructure projects. The bulk,
Mga infra.
Opo.
Okay. Ito nga no, again, I would say it again, as I mentioned a while ago dun sa Pced. I think not because we are in midst of this pandemic, walang face-to-face, etc. Babaliwalain na natin yung infra. But I really think na once we resume face-to-face, dapat ready rin ho tayo.
January po nakahanda na sila mag face-to-face basta papayagan ng IATF.
Okay. So by January. So ano mangyayari dito kasi medyo malaki, 330 million na unused.
Sir, nagre-request po ulit kami doon sa ibang mga projects kung pwedeng i-refund kasi magkaroon ng new funding for the continuing infrastructure projects.
And then pag sinabi sa amin kasi hindi naman nila ginamit nun, bakit natin pagtitiwalaan ulit na gagamitin na nila ngayon?
Sir, mostly yan naka-obligate na. Kaya lang hindi po nakakapag-report yung mga contractor sa on-site or minsan limited capacity and non-availability of construction materials. So,
did I get it right? It was already been obligated?
Most of them, yes, sir.
Well, sige ho. Parang nalito ko, it's unused eh. Yung Pag-asa, 131 million. Sir, anong reason for this? Unused 131 million? May binibili ho ba tayo or something na sa Pag-asa?
Pwede po ba ako, Mr. Chair, from Pag-asa?
Yes, who's that?
Dr. Malano.
Okay, sige po. Go ahead.
Yun pong major reason po noon is yung classified as late release, yung pong 80 million na kung natatandaan po, kayo po yung pasok dun sa pondo na
Lagi naman kami tumutulong dito eh. Sige po, ano nangyari doon?
ka-approve lang po ng presidente earlier last month.
Okay, sige po. So, ito magagamit niyo po ito, no, sir?
Opo, maraming salamat po at ginagawa na po namin for bidding na po.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Malano. And that's the reason why I'm asking this question. Kasi when we do our part in helping you, kailangan ma-prove din namin na it is worth helping you. Kasi hindi lang yung only because we believe in your presentation, we believe na this is an important program, but we know that you can use it and use it properly. Thank you. Senator Tolentino, if you may want to...
Your Honor, pwede bang idagdag ko din yung sa Philippine Science High School, may bagong release sila.
Just a minute, Secretary. Let's listen to Senator Tolentino.
Let the good secretary finish his manifestation first. I'm just listening.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Secretary De La Peña. You're recognized.
Idadagdag ko lang, Your Honor, na yung 80 million din ng Pced ay bagong release lang a week ago. Ito po yung gagamitin sa paglalagay ng mga rainwater collection system sa mga bubungan ng aming mga campuses.
Thank you, Secretary. Yes, Senator Tolentino, you're recognized.
Mr. Secretary, Mr. Senator mamaya.
I'm sorry, we couldn't hear you, Senator Tolentino. I'm sorry. You're still on mute mode, sir.
Let the department finish. Go ahead with the presentation first, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, they did already, Your Honor. No, they finished the presentation. I'm actually the one asking questions, but I can acknowledge and give way to your questions. But if I may, I will continue further, Your Honor.
Just two questions, Your Honor. Just two questions, probably related to what we discussed last year. If I may be allowed to proceed. Ano na po
Sure, please.
Yes, Mr. Address to the Secretary. Ano na po nangyari doon sa napondohan, matagal na na-announce na clinical trials relative to some herbal medicines being conducted by the department, and I'm referring to not just to VCO, but other traditional medicines. What's the status of this in relation to COVID-19? Is this done or still continuing?
I would like Dr. Montoya to update us on the status of these clinical trials on BCO, Lagundi, Tawa-Tawa, which are natural products. Thank you very much po. Magandang hapon po, Senator. Just an update on the trials that are supporting the herbal and other related medicines. Yung pong clinical trial po na community-based ng for BCO, natapos na po yan. At meron na po tayong data results po na na-present na po tungkol doon. Yung BCO naman po for use in moderate cases of COVID na hospitalized po na ginagawa po sa Philippine General Hospital, natapos na rin po yung pag-aaral at we are already in the data analysis portion po. And based on the target po ay lalabas po yung results po by middle of next month. Ito pong sa Lagundi po bilang adjunct therapy o karagdagang paggagamot sa mga pasyente na may mild o non-severe COVID. Natapos na rin po ang study. In fact, nagsabit na po siya ng report at pinag-aaralan na ho namin yung resulta bago po siya i-present yung results po na nasabing trial. Yung po sa Tawa-Tawa po na ginagawa po sa Negros po, ito po ay still ongoing dahil medyo mabagal po yung patient recruitment. Pero ang target po nito ay matatapos rin po ito ng by next month po yung recruitment at siguro po ang pag-release ng results will be a month after that. So that will be around November. Yun po ang update po doon, Honorable Senator.
Thank you, Dr. Montoya. But the real rationale behind that question is that how come it took us so long and it's taking us so long when the said study was initiated during the start of the pandemic itself. So bakit po ganun katagal? I understand there was a study conducted in Santa Rosa Hospital in Laguna. Thereafter, you transferred to, and then you're asking for additional budgets for this year, o stop na po yun?
Po sa Santa Rosa, Your Honor, nung pang November po natapos yon at nakita naman na meron talagang diferensya yung period of recovery ng mga suspected and probable patients na yon na actually karamihan naman sa kanila actually turned out positive din. Kasi sila pumupunta sa mga quarantine center dahil may mga symptoms sila pero hindi naman po lahat ay PCR positive. So yung nagdaan sa trials yung mga nag-positive po. At doon naman nakita na yung paghahalo ng virgin coconut oil sa kanilang mga meals na piniprepare ng Food and Nutrition Research Institute, nakita po na yung mga pasyente na dumaan sa BCO ay lahat ay gumaling na after 18 days. Yung pong mga hindi nag-BCO, bagamat gumaling din lahat, ay inabot po ng 23 days. Kaya yun ay kinoconsider naming magandang resulta bukod pa po doon sa mga actual analysis ng kanilang level of infection na nakita na talagang mas madaling nawala yung infection doon sa mga nag-take ng BCO. Kaya may mga cities po na gustong i-replicate yan para sa kanila namang mga citizens na nagka-COVID at yan ngayon ay ongoing na po sa Valenzuela at ongoing na rin sa Muntinlupa. Ang kainaman po nito ay mentors mas marami tayong ebidensya, siyempre mas maganda at it will be complemented naman by the results of the PGH studies for the moderate and severe cases na natapos na din po at hinihintay na lang namin ang statistical analysis.
Thank you, Doctor. Pero but the real point here is, where do we go from here? You've conducted studies. That's been more than a year. Positive results came out. You used actual human beings as part of the studies, not as guinea pigs. You might call it guinea pigs, but where do we go from here? Are we properly disseminating this? Are we now asking for additional funds that would entail the production of what you've done so far as a supplement to COVID-19 treatments? Because in a few months time, I heard the medicine would be out to really cure COVID-19. So saan tayo papunta? Enough na ba ng studies lang o meron talaga tayong patutunguhan na maglalabas tayo ng traditional medicine as a supplement that would really help our constituents? Kasi sa ngayon po parang studies lang, with all due respect.
Nadinig mo?
Honorable Senator, kung pwede ko pong sagutin yung inyong comment at saka tanong. Tayo po ay gumagawa ng clinical trial po para unang-una, yung pong indikasyon na inaprubahan po ng FDA for this particular supplements. For example po, itong sa BCO at tawa-tawa ay ma-include po ang COVID-19. Dahil ito po ay inapprove po ng FDA based on the results of the clinical trial at sinabi po ni Secretary na of course the more patients po ang included, mas maganda po. Then eventually po, ito po i-recommenda sa maging part po na tinatawag na clinical practice guidelines po o rekomendasyon ng mga professional society para ito po ay karagdagang gamot na pwedeng gamitin sa mga mayroong may COVID-19. So inaasahan po natin na base po sa planong ito po ay gagamitin ng mas maraming tao. Dahil gusto po natin na hindi lang po ang mga pasyente ang mismong gagamit ng gamot, kundi pati mga doktor ay magpe-prescribe ng gamot na ito para sa mga pasyente na may COVID-19. Kasi sa ngayon po, kailangan po natin itong evidence na to para makumbinsi ang ating mga manggagamot na ibigay po ito sa mga pasyente na may COVID-19? Sana po nasagot ko po yung tanong niyo po.
Partly, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. But we hope you can have a self-imposed deadline on this para alam naman namin kung saan tayo patutungo. And thank you for that. Last question, as I promised, Mr. Chairman, because I'll be multitasking. I'll be joining the Blue Ribbon Committee in a bit. Perhaps the DOST is familiar with the findings of the Commission on Audit relative to the DOH issue right now. There is no overpricing as certified by the COA, but there is a problem as to inventory management issues. The reason why I'm raising this is perhaps the DOST, being that creative and with brilliant scientific men behind men and women, can have perhaps devise for the government a warehouse management system, an automated warehouse management system that would help not just the DOST but even the Department of Health. This is now needed because this is not just for the Department of Health. You can utilize that for the Armed Forces of the Philippines relative to their firearms, to their armaments, etc. You can utilize that for the Department of Education, for the books, for the gadgets that they have right now. So we will be moving on from a Stone Age flip chart or writing of a utilization of inventory ledgers to a more automated one. Can the DOST help the government in that regard? Anybody can answer.
With the permission, Your Honor. First of all po ngayon ay marami na kaming natitrain na mga gustong matuto ng data analytics and data science at yan po ay napakagandang paraan para makagawa ng mga pagbabago doon sa pamamaraan ng pagmamanage ng mga iba't ibang katulad ng inyong nabanggit, storage, inventory, etc. Kaya sa amin po pwede siguro naming makover yan dahil yung mga ibang napapatapos namin diyan sa training program na yan sa data science, data analytics at artificial intelligence, inaalaw namin silang maggawa ng mga proposals para sa pagbalik nila sa kanilang mga ahensya na ma-implement nila yung mga improvements na yon. Siguro po babanggitin ko na rin at ito naman ay may kinalaman sa linya na aking itinuro for 43 years sa UP College of Engineering. Ako ay nagturo ng Industrial Engineering for 43 years. Isasuggest ko po sana na yung mga ibang ahensya consider nilang mag-recruit ng mga industrial engineers para dyan sa mga ganyang klase ng trabaho. Salamat po.
Thank you, Secretary. So we look forward to initiatives and proactive moves coming from your department that would really assist other government departments and agencies in this big problem of automated storage, retrieval systems. These are apps. Sa opisina ko nga, sa Senado, hindi ko na maintindihan yung filing. Ang dami. Araw-araw may mga dumarating na mga papeles. So I think you should be at the forefront of this, being the more creative department. So we look forward to that. I know that that's not part of your budget for 2022, but I think moving forward, you can provide the space for that system. Mr. Chairman, I hope I can propound other questions, but I have to transfer to the other committee. Before I leave, Mr. Chairman, just one question. Perhaps I might not be able to hear the answer. I've been familiar. This is addressed to PBORGS.
Your Honor.
I've been familiar. We're all familiar with the alert level systems of Taal Volcano, Mayon Volcano. Will the crisscrossing of the alert nomenclatures being done by IATF bring about more confusion, because we're now alert level 4 in Metro Manila, alert level 1 in Taal. So is there a supposed to be a scientific priority as regards the utilization of those terms. Di ba pang ano lang yung pang vulkan? Hindi dapat sa mga, mas okay na yung GCQ dati, yung ECQ. So, ganito Yusek Solidum.
Your Honor, hindi ko pa po na pag-isipan yung kung makakalito nga yung alert level sa PBOX at sa ano, pero baka si Yusek Rene po ay makasagot.
Sige, we'll hear from Yusek Solidum, and I share the sentiments of our distinguished colleague from Cavite, that this might create some sort of confusion, and that's why it should be you of all agencies in the government should be consulted on this particular matter. Yes, Yusek Solidum.
Yes, when I read that there is a new alert level, I think there won't be any confusion as long as we emphasize volcano alert level versus COVID alert level. Because people will understand once you have the specific subject right there, like typhoon signal. So hindi naman po nagkakalito doon kung mag-emphasize lang ng ganun.
So it's now up to PBOX to clarify over and over again that what we're referring to is an alert level of a volcanic seismic movement, not just your lockdowns. Ganun ba? Yung Solidum. Siguro.
But perhaps if you don't live within the vicinity of, for example, in Tagaytay or in those areas, Your Honor, distinguished colleague, it would be extra harder for the people to realize that it's actually a volcanic alert level and it's not COVID alert level. So I'm just saying, because if you live in the provinces like in Sarangani, in other areas of the country, wala ka siguro. But if you live in the area where there's, in Sorsogon, in Mayon volcano area, in Taal volcano area, baka dun baka may confusion ho dun. Anyway, sige, sorry, Senator Tolentino, you were saying?
Chairman, I'll try to be back. I'll join the Blue Ribbon. I'll try to be back. But again, I think we're celebrating the National Inventors Week next week or this week. So I'm supportive of the budget of the DOST with the caveat that they should be more proactive, and studies like what they've done, clinical trials involving traditional medicine, should be published and should be laymanized in such a way that the hopes of the people would further be upgraded, because we have now medicines coming from local sources, coming from Filipino minds. So I'll try to be back, Mr. Chair, but if I'll not be back, it would mean that I'm involved in the Blue Ribbon committee hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this opportunity, and thank you for the resource person.
Thank you very much, Senator Tolentino, and I will continue asking questions with regard to what Senator Tolentino made mention a while ago about local products. I just got this text message, or tweet message from Mr. Juan Mugna, and he was saying, Senator, what about creating a unit, department, or whatever to support developing technologies needed in developing products, and DTI to focus on marketing? And the bottom line is, yung binabanggit ni Senator Tolentino, and I share his sentiment. We have been pushing here in the Senate yung Filipino first mentality, made in the Philippines, etc. So, is there any an ongoing, or are we intensifying these initiatives in support to developing our products, local products, with the help of DOST, Your Honor? Secretary.
Meron po kaming bagong programa na magkatulong kami ng Intellectual Property Office, at nagkaroon kami ng parang special highway para mapabilis ang pagtulong dito sa mga nakaka-develop ng mga bagong produkto. Kasi po naniniwala kami na ang unang hakbang para sa pagtulong diyan sa mga invention at mga bagong produkto ay maprotektahan muna ang intellectual property. At natutuwa naman po kami kasi ang Intellectual Property Office Philippines ay napaka-eager na makipag-cooperate sa amin. Siguro po babanggitin niyo si Gibara yung pag-increase sa statistics ng aming mga intellectual property protection. Unang hakbang pa lang po yun, pagkatapos noon yung iba pang mga pagtulok.
I'm glad you made mention that kasi yun yung baseline, no, foundation na kailangan matatag para maprotektahan yung ating mga would-be entrepreneurs, no? Sige, Yusek, you wanted to add some more?
Some statistics po, Senator. Noong pong 2014, ang ating filing po from the DOST and yung mga DOST-funded R&D projects ay nasa mga 20 IP filings per year. But we are very happy to report na in the last 3 years, more than 1,000 po per year ang ating naifa-file na intellectual property rights. So ibig sabihin po, aware na po yung researchers. Idagdag ko lang po na meron po kaming pakikipagtulungan with the Department of Trade and Industry. Nilagay po nila sa investment priority plans na yung mga results ng DOST and other government agencies funded na R&D na i-commercialize ay pwede pong magkaroon ng incentives under the investment priority plans.
Thank you po, thank you. I wanted to fast track ko sana, no, kasi may dalawang hearing po ako na attendan pa supposed to be, but I think it is important to ask some of these questions. For example, yung decline in disbursement rate from 2019 to 2020. DOST's total disbursement rate declined by 87%, 87.3 in 2019 to 83% in 2020. Again, PSHSS in particular recorded the lowest disbursement rate in 2020. Is this because of the pandemic again, Your Honor, or yung earlier statement given to us, more of the infrastructure, ma'am?
Sir, sa disbursement rate, okay. May problema po kami ngayon gawa ng yung deliveries, installation ay natatagalan po.
Can you speak louder, ma'am, please? Or just move closer to the microphone. I can barely hear you. Thank you.
So we're encountering problems because of the pandemic, sir. So the delivery, the services to be provided are taking longer time than the usual.
But do you have a catch-up plan for this? On how, I mean, are you proposing something to improve your obligation rate and disbursement rate? Medyo mababa po eh.
Sir, for instance, yung procurement namin ng 25 million computers, we started the early procurement as early as October. Pagkatapos po, sa
October of last year.
October of last year, na-award namin nitong bandang June na po or recent lang po. Tapos yung supplier, hindi naman po nagdi-deliver pa hanggang ngayon. So supposedly, sa calendar namin, ang payment will be the third quarter pero hindi po nangyayari. And wala naman po kaming magawa kasi wala yung computers, laptops na gagamitin ng ating mga estudyante. Yung aming servers na ibibigay sa mga campuses, ganun din po. So, yung sa servers naman, na-deliver na nitong September po.
Okay. Sige, ma'am, what I'm just saying is, please help me out on this particular issue because I'll be encountering these questions by the time this representation would defend your budget. So, pahingi na lang po ng mga data to support, no? And how we'll be able to do this. But I understand where you're coming from. At least, hindi kayo pumunta sa PSDBM. So,
My dear Senator, nung pong sa procurement ng laptops, we need to get clearance from DBM, from PSDBM, that the items are not available. Otherwise,
understand
naman
that,
po
yes.
kami. Opo. So, it takes time po.
yes, okay. Again, I'm here to to help you out, but please give me ammunitions and make sure that we'll be able to convince our colleagues here, especially if we're asking for additional budget for the Department of Science and Technology. In total, moving forward, I'd like to talk about this technology business incubators. I was listening kanina sa presentation. Gusto ko lang malaman, sir, how many startups were hosted in the 47, if I'm not mistaken, 47 yun, yung technology business incubator facilities and 16 innovation hubs spread across the country in 2021?
Maybe Yusek can provide some answers, but typically, Your Honor, yung mga incubators na yan, if they are accommodating the tenants to actually stay there, okay, in their incubator, usually po yan nasa between 10 to 20 lang per incubator ang naiha-house. Ano? Although meron po kaming sinusuportahan programa yung sa QBO, na pwede rin silang mag-incubate virtually. Ano? So, hindi na kailangan doon.
Actually, yun yung papupunta po ako dun kasi with what's happening right now, no, with the pandemic posing challenges to the establishment of these businesses, it's becoming increasingly more imperative to enable adaptation to new ways of learning in the information age. Pwede mo bang ganito about it, the kind of digital-based programs and projects with Filipino-made innovative IT business models the DOST hope to pursue in the coming years? Kasi ito yung tingin natin way to go at this point in time.
Yes, Your Honor, and actually our councils have started already the assistance to startups. First of all, we are mandated now by the Innovative Startup Act. There are 3 departments, DTI, DOST, and DICT, to have assistance programs for startups. In a way, maganda naman po talaga yun dahil meron na kami basihan sa pagbibigay ng tulong. Kasi kung walang legal basis, mako-question din kami ng COA dahil mga private ito eh. Oo.
Yes. And
Ngayon po ay maganda nga. At dati, ang pinaka-active lang sa amin, nag-umpisa yan yung nasa Industry and Energy and Emerging Technologies kasi puro IT. Pero ngayon po ay marami na rin yung nasa agricultural side at nasa health side. Ano? For example, may mga startup companies na ang basihan ay agricultural technology, hindi ICT. No? Pero siguro po mabanggit ko rin na nitong magkaroon tayo ng pandemic ay napakadami pong, hindi naman napakadami pero in my estimate, anywhere between 15 to 20 startups came up with very good solutions to the problems that we have been encountering. Katulad po ng mga sinabi kanina ni Senator Tolentino, yung mga pagmamanage ng logistics, halimbawa pati yung pagmamanage ng ayuda, pati yung pagmamanage ng pagbibigay ng mga goods in kind sa mga naapektuhan at lahat po yan ay natutulungan ng mga startups. Nung pong kami ay hiningan ng DOH, for example, mag-donate kami ng specimen collection booth, nung magsimula na po yung mga testing, ay isang startup nag-submit ng design na hindi naman humihingi ng royalty kahit gamitin ng iba. At yun po ang pinagbasihan namin. Kaya yung hiningi sa aming 92 specimen collection booth, for naging 132 na pala later on.
Yan from?
Yan po, yung specimen collection booth po. Yan ay ginamit namin yung design ng isang startup company.
Yes, and it's 132
po yung hospital na
132
namin. 132. Pero, in 45 days nagawa yun. Ang kainaman po nun ay meron ding nag-replicate nun sa region. Halimbawa sa Region 1 po, yung isa naming furniture maker, actually, ay sinubukan din niyang gamitin yung design ng startup. At kapag donate po sila, katulong ang DOST Region 1 sa siyam na ospital sa Region 1.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Siguro, Secretary, if we can also get a from your office yung concrete plan natin, perhaps strategy na ensure natin na yung startups in this TBIs would be getting funding from venture capitalists, no? Kasi I was looking at dun sa Global Innovation Index, some of the challenges in the Philippines are the lack of available credit as well as the difficulty of getting funds from venture capitalists or private equity funds. So siguro yun lang ako kasi I think it's important.
Yeah,
Yes, you want to add some more, Yusek?
Just some numbers. We have about 600 startups in our TBIs. May 200 po na full-blown na. Tapos na po sila dun sa incubation part. At saka po nakakapag-generate na po sila ng mga income.
Okay. 300 na yung full-blown. Thank you. Thank you with that. Siguro yung last topic that I'd like to tackle. I have been espousing the National Employment Recovery Strategy, with regard to what is happening right now. I'm focusing on this particular program of the government. I'm very supportive and I'm glad that DTI, DOLE, and other agencies supported me on this. Now, the executive order of the president came out, I think EO 140, in integrating different agencies of the government to focus on National Employment Recovery Strategy. Kasama ho dito yung DOST, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, nakita rin natin yung effects ng CEST program, empowering the poorest of the poor and the most depressed communities in the country via science and technology. Sa health, nutrition, water sanitation, basic education and literacy, and then ito livelihood, economic enterprise development, and including disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation. Gusto ko lang pong i-share, Secretary, and the leadership of the OST. Just recently, I had the conversation during the budget of the Department of Trade and Industry, which I think the Secretary Lopez is heading or chairing the nurse program, no? I reiterated to him the importance of having a mechanism to monitor. Kasi right now, I was told that the target is to create at least 1.220 million jobs. So that's the target, no? Spread out into the different agencies of the government, kasama DOST, kasama TESDA, DOLE, at DTI. And then there's also part of the program is to help out at least 1.4 million displaced workers, no? So dun sa 1.220 na i-create na jobs, no? I was able to convince Secretary Lopez na gumawa tayo ng point system. Hanapin na natin ngayon pa lang, and I'm reiterating this, Secretary, so I can also get your support, na yung different agencies of the government would help hand in hand, look at the different industries, and find out, for example, in the IT BPM sector, ilan ang kaya naming ilikhang trabaho dito. Sa agriculture, ilan. Sa tourism, ilan. Sa ganitong lugar, sa region na ganito, by region. And then we come up with a scorecard. Na-convince ko po si Secretary Lopez dito, and I'm hoping that I'll also get your support on this, because at the end of the day, we wanted to see yung development and yung success rate of this National Employment Recovery Strategy. Pagka may kulang pa, pwedeng dagdagan ng pondo, etc. Nandito kami para tumulong. And I thought DOST is also a very important department in this particular program. You have CEST, you have Small Enterprise Technology Upgrading Program, yung setup. Siguro no, ang ano ko lang is yung targets natin dito, makuha natin, breakdown into siguro kahit dalawa na lang industries and regions. So yun lang makita natin ito yung beneficiaries, target ng CES, target ng setup, target ng IFWD, itong Innovation for Filipinos Working Distantly from the Philippines kasi alam ko kasama din po yan no yung mga nare-repatriate naman na OFWs to establish their own technology-based business through training, technical consultancy, mentorship, and innovation fund assistance so that they'll be able to encourage to settle in the country for good. Just yesterday, not even 24 hours ago, less than 24 hours ago, I was just here in this floor and we just closed the period of interpellation and debates on the creation of the Department of Filipino Overseas, and we're looking forward to ensuring that we'll have this comprehensive full cycle reintegration program. So gusto ko rin hong makita yan. So yun lang ho yung request ko, and I'd like to hear from our good secretary. So at the end of the day, when you talk about all the efforts that we are doing right now amidst the pandemic, napakahalaga ho talaga ng paggawa at paglikha ng trabaho, at kailangan ito talaga forefront ito ng ating initiatives para muling makabangon at muling sumigla yung ating ekonomiya. Sige po, Secretary de la Peña.
Well, siguro po share ko lang sa inyo na ang DOST every Friday afternoon, 4 to 5 p.m., meron kaming DOST report. Ako po ang nagbo-broadcast noon at inihahayag ko yung accomplishment ng different agencies and units, including regional offices of DOST, kung ano-ano nagawa nila nung linggo na yun. Ano? At yan po ay pwede naming isama kasi usually naman, ini-indicate doon kung ilan yung bago nilang natulungang setup, bagong natulungang CES, pwede namang isama na rin yung report kung ilan ba yung na-employ nilang mga tao or yung mga jobs na na-create. So, hindi po mahirap sa amin yun, Your Honor.
I'm glad, and it appears to me that you are supportive of the initiative of this representation na magkaroon ho ng ganitong mekanismo to ensure the success of National Employment Recovery Strategy.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. One last thing no, dito sa IFWD kasi nakita ko lang ho dun sa report 2021 253 OFWs trained, 83 techno-based enterprises now owned by OFWs funded. Pero sa 2021 accomplishments, 122 OFWs trained, 2 techno-based enterprises owned by OFWs funded. 2021 budget, 40 million, 20 million capacity building, 20 million techno-based enterprise assistance. Ang tanong ko how much funding is given to IFWD for 2022? And so sa 2022, mag-i-increase ba yung target natin of the IFW for 2022?
Yes, Your Honor. Noong 2020 po kasi, umpisa namin yung programa na yan, hindi pa siya decentralized. No? So, lahat na yan nakasentro dito sa Manila, sa NCR, at kumbaga sa pinilot muna namin. Ngayon pong 2021 ay i-branch out na yan sa mga regional offices. So, may kanya-kanya na pong budget allocation, yung mga regional offices, para dyan sa IFW. At gusto ko lang pong i-emphasize na ito po ay mga micro enterprises, technology-based micro enterprises. At ang maximum po naming allocation para sa bawat startup ay nasa 250,000 per startup. Pero yun po, ang requirement nun, kung bibigyan ka ng 250, dapat may maipakita ka rin 250. Kasi po, kung talagang negosyante yan, kailangan may manggaling sa bulsa niya. At ang kinatutuwa lang po namin, mula nung mag-decentralize kami, ay marami po palang mga OFWs na may mga lupa-lupa. At kaya marami sa kanila ay gusto yung mga agri-aqua project. So, meron sila ding pagkukunan. So, yan po ay ika nga, inoobserbahan pa natin kung gaano magiging successful tayo dyan dahil mahigpit po ang screening eh. Hindi lahat ng mag-apply ay natatanggap.
Thank you, Secretary. And perhaps the last question that I would ask from you is your stand on the Virology Center, because the House of Representatives approved on July 28 the bill creating the Virology Science and Technology Institute of the Philippines, or VIP. Now we understand that the VIP shall be established as a venue for scientists, both local and abroad, to work and study viruses of agricultural, industrial, clinical, and environmental importance. It says here it will also establish strategic partnerships with the world's leading scientists, virology centers, and institutes, and conduct pioneering research. I just wanted to place this on record, Secretary, yung stand po ninyo, kasi napakainit din po nung usapin on the strengthening of the RITM and why are we pushing daw for this creation of a virology institute. I just want to get your position on this, and I'm sure this will also be asked of me the time by the time we deliberate the budget of DOST on the floor deliberations. Thank you, Secretary, please.
Well, siguro po matutulungan ako nila Dr. Montoy at Yusek Geb dito, pero kami po ang unang lumapit kay Senator Lacson para magkaroon ng bill. Bago pa man kami pumunta sa Kongreso, ay dito kami nagpunta sa Senado. At yun po kasi ang paniniwala namin na isang area na napabayaan ng napakaraming taon. May picture po tayo na noong 1939, nag-donate tayo ng Philippine-made vaccines to China. Ano po ang nangyari mula noon hanggang ngayon? Pati yung stock farm sa Alabang, naging mga mall na ang nandoon. Kami po naniniwala na talagang dapat merong isang specialized agency na tututok sa viruses at sa mga produkto na makakalaban sa viruses, katulad ng mga diagnostic kit, ng gamot at ng bakuna. Alam po ninyo, ngayon lang kami nakakita ng isang topic na pinag-uusapan na dinumog kami ng mga scientificong Pilipino sa iba't ibang bansa na nagpakita ng interes na karamihan, kinikilabutan tuloy ako. Karamihan po dyan ay never heard namin sila, pero nung dumating itong pag-uusap sa Virology and Vaccine Institute, ayan po si Yusek Guevara makapagsasabi kung ilan sila na talagang gustong-gustong tumulong.
Let me place this on record, and the records will bail me out. I have been calling for this for quite a long time. In fact, when we were discussing the budget to procure vaccines, I keep on pounding on the idea as to when are we going to start producing our own local vaccines. Other countries are doing it, and I've been asking these questions even with the IATF, with Secretary Galvez, Secretary Duque, etc. I feel this is very important because even right now, if you look at the procurement of vaccines, we are dependent on these rich countries producing these vaccines. And pagiging magaling lamang, huwag na natin sabing maganda't magandang lalaki, pag-iisip na lang, laban tayo dyan. So again, I think it is very important, but yung gusto kong marinig, Secretary De La Peña, is yung whether you go to this track of establishing the Virology Science and Technology Institute of the Philippines versus the idea of strengthening our ITM, because the other side of the fence is saying, andyan na to, bakit hindi na lang i-strengthen, nandito na to at palawigin, etc. versus creating a new Virology Science and Technology Institute of the Philippines. I just want to get your thoughts on this, and so that we'll be ready in answering questions regarding this particular issue. Sir, please.
Hindi na po ako magsasalita bilang DOST Secretary. Bilang isang Pilipino, naniniwala po ako na kailangan natin ng bagong institusyon para dito. At kami naman po ay nagdaan sa katakot-takot na hearing na present ang RITM at wala naman po kaming narinig na objection mula sa kanila. At siguro po idadagdag ko rin na ang isang impormasyon na aming nakuha ay meron din naman isang bill na propose na kung saan magkakaroon tayo ng parang Center for Disease Control at yun ang magiging main role ng RITM. Yun lang po. So ako po bilang Pilipino ay paglalaban ko na magkaroon tayo ng isang Virology and Vaccine Institute. Salamat po.
Thank you. Maraming salamat, Secretary De La Peña. Loud and clear. Are there any other issues, dear colleagues, from this August chamber? If there's none, I will... Yes, Secretary De La Peña.
Tungkol sa tanong ni Senator Amy kanina tungkol doon sa 1.7 billion na ipinasoli sa atin ng COA.
Para nasa
Yan
record.
po kasi under the Republic Act 7687, allowed naman kami na magkaroon ng isang trust fund para doon sa mga pera sa scholarship. And every year po, merong mga scholar na nagpapadefer, merong nag-leave of absence, merong hindi nagsasabit ng requirements, merong thesis grantees na hindi naman natutuloy o nadidelay. Obligado po kaming itabi yung pera para sa kanila hanggang hindi nila sinasabing ayaw na namin. So yan po, naipon po yan doon sa pondo na yon hanggang sa naging 1.7 billion. Nung pong makita ng COA yan, pinakiusap namin na kung pwedeng gamitin namin sa ibang klaseng scholarship dahil nagpapadala na po tayo ng scholars sa abroad doon sa mga areas na wala tayo dito. Eh sabi po ng COA ay hindi, isauli ninyo. Sinauli po namin buong buo yung 1.7 billion.
Okay, thank you. It's clear. Hindi na wala ho ito at naisole. Maraming salamat po. Again, if there are no member who wish to ask more questions, we will approve the budget of the Department of Science and Technology and its attached agencies to this Subcommittee J to be submitted to the mother committee of the Committee on Finance and then to the plenary for appropriate action. Thank you very much again, Secretary De La Peña and Yusek Guevara, Yusek Silidum, Executive Director Montoya, Sec Maridon, Sec Ted, and Executive Director Lilia. Maraming salamat po for being physically present here. Sa ating mga kasamahan na virtually present from all over the country. Maraming salamat po sa inyong partisipasyon at suporta. We are here to help in any way we can and we will just coordinate with your offices and units in case we need some vital information. Maraming salamat po at congratulations po. God bless you all.
Salamat din po, Your Honor, at kay Senator Amy Marcos at Senator Tolentino rin na nag-participate. Marami po salamat.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, we thank Senator Amy Marcos, Senator Tolentino for joining us in today's hearing. We are now going to suspend the deliberation of the budget deliberation of this Subcommittee J. Thank you again and good afternoon. Pwede nang kumain.
Thank you. Salamat po.